It has been a week since the person arrived in this new place. He woke up in Euclid Manor, specifically in Killian's bedroom. At first, he thought all of this was just a dream, but as time passed, the very real feeling of life made him finally accept the truth of his situation. He wondered if this was some kind of afterlife because he died from a lightning strike back in his previous life. What was sure was that he had now literally become the villain of the game he used to be developing. The name he now held was Killian von Grahen Euclid. This character was the middle boss in the game, no matter which path the player took. Killian was known as the source of all problems, the enemy of everyone, and he caused a lot of pain to many characters in the game. The person inside wondered why he had to become this specific villain, and another big problem was that he had no idea what part of the game's story he was currently in. The only thing he knew for sure was the total amount of mana he had, but even then, he didn't know how fast it would run out, making it impossible to prepare for anything. He remembered that during the game's development, everyone, including himself, tested it around 1,000 times, and this character, Killian, only survived once in those tests. He was nothing but a villain made only to die and fulfill his role as the middle boss. He then looked at some documents, wondering if this was the paper the other person left behind, which was titled Professor Killian of the Imperial University, Basic Understanding of Magic and Mindset Toward Mana. The woman who threw these papers while he was sleeping was Yahello von Grahen Euclid. She was Killian's half-sister and the one currently in charge of House Euclid, acting in Killian's place. A little note confirmed that Yahello did not have a good relationship with Killian. The woman that Yahello mentioned was probably Julie, Killian's fiancée, and something bad must have happened between them recently. He assumed the woman screaming in the memory, likely Julie, was the one who threw the papers. The person speaking was telling him to get up right now if he didn't want to lose his fancy professor job, leaving the documents behind. She stressed that if he didn't want to be fired, he needed to get up immediately. He noted that she used the word professor, meaning the lecture was scheduled for today, so he felt he should go. Even though he had never given lectures before, he knew he had to do something to gather more information about his current situation. More than anything, he saw the words floating above his face. His primary survival goal was to become necessary to the game, and a side quest, university lecture, would give him plus 0.5 store currency. These floating words from when he woke up, along with the presence of Uriel, made him feel he needed to get moving. He knew there were scenarios where Killian could die because of Uriel, and that store currency was quite important for his survival. But now the question was what he was supposed to lecture about, but he quickly decided not to worry because this body had the attribute called comprehension. This attribute had a unique grade description, the ability to understand anything, activated by consuming mana. He realized he had given Killian this attribute before he took over the body, hoping it would grant him some empathy. Since it was a unique grade attribute that only appeared later in the game, he suspected there might be hidden effects as well. He touched a nearby object, and the body felt so natural that it was as if he had lived as Killian his whole life. He then thought about the clothes in the bathroom, which usually felt unfamiliar, but now he could use them without much thought. It truly felt like he had lived as Killian all his life. Normally, he would feel out of place in such elegant clothes, but right now, they felt elegant and comfortable, and he noticed this was due to another of Killian's attributes, intimidation and dignity and aesthetic sense. He put on gloves, and it felt like the body was telling him this was his now. It felt like the body was insisting that this body now belonged to him. He didn't even feel like saying anything rude, which was a change from how he used to be. The formality that Kim Woo-jin once found rigid now felt natural, and his main purpose was to gather information. Walking towards his first lecture felt completely natural, just like he was a noble and a superior member of the nobility. He walked with the confidence of a noble, superior member of the nobility. Then, a memory flashed, making him briefly lose his composure. He quickly dismissed the thought, reminding himself he was Kim Woo-jin, a regular man from South Korea, who was objectively tall and handsome. He then recalled what someone said before they broke up with him. That person had called him a pathetic, lazy bastard. Looking at the image of his past self, he affirmed, "That's me." He resolved that he wouldn't lose himself in this new life. So, he would not let his guard down as he got into the fancy car waiting for him. He had never been in such a nice car before, and thinking about expensive cars reminded him of one past incident. That memory still pissed him off, but he snapped out of it with a slight hum as his assistant got in the car. He looked at the young man sitting next to him and wondered who this guy was, looking somewhat worried. The young man suddenly looked up excitedly, greeting him as professor, and quickly offering him some documents. The young man was scared when he asked if the person was a wizard, but then the assistant clarified he had been at his service for 3 years already. The man told him he was joking as the car drove out into the countryside. He reviewed the documents, thinking they were lecture materials, but they were actually just a script for him to read, containing all the information needed for the lecture from start to finish. He figured there was no way Dikilin himself prepared this material, considering how prideful and untalented he was known to be. The assistant must have done all the work, which made him groan a little in an internal glitch of emotion. Then he unexpectedly told the assistant, "Good work," which made the assistant jump in surprise. He told the surprised assistant to get some rest until they reached their destination, and the assistant quickly agreed, wondering if his master actually gave a compliment. He felt a wave of disgust, wondering how terrible a person he was for feeling sick just from complimenting someone else. He questioned if this was the real Dikilin, noting that the feeling of Dikilin's consciousness invading his own was something he felt since leaving the manor. As the car arrived, the assistant announced, "We've arrived, master," as they pulled up to a massive building. He stepped out, realizing this place was Dikilin's workplace. The massive structure was the Imperial University, with many students gathered outside. He looked toward the building, wondering if the area noted on the letter was indeed here. He asked himself if this place was the Rodeo Hall lecture hall. Inside Rodeo Hall, students were seated, waiting to finally listen to head Professor Dikilin's lecture. The students whispered that he was the master of spell interpretation and apparently a child prodigy. Then, the man stepped forward, introducing himself as Dikilin von Grahen-Euclin, the head professor of the university's magic tower, and announced he would begin his lecture. He turned his back to them holding his notes and began, "Now I'll begin my lecture." As he stood there, one female student thought, "Wow, he's handsome." A friend agreed, saying he was smart too, thinking how cool he was. Suddenly, that cool image was broken by a surge of red, and Dikilin's hand clenched into a fist, letting out a harsh breath, thinking, "At last, we meet." The focus shifted to a girl with glowing blue eyes, who thought of Dikilin as the enemy of her father. The scene then showed a close-up of Dikilin, surrounded by beautiful white and purple flowers. The girl's intense feeling was projected as a huge, sharp bubble of text shouting, "Dikilin, you trash bastard." The final image showed the villain's face reflected and shattering like broken glass, suggesting a breakdown or a fractured reality. 3 years ago, the main character's father took his own life, leaving the character in deep sadness. The father had worked for many years researching spell interpretation, but he was devastated when someone stole his thesis. The person who took the thesis was hailed as the genius spell interpreter by everyone. The main character stares ahead, filled with negative emotions related to this person. That detestable person who stole the thesis, the main character reveals with a shattered reflection, was Dikilin. However, the character admits that they could not do anything about it back then. This was because after the father died, the character lost everything, including their noble status, house, and land. The character became an orphan with no home, sitting alone in a messy, empty room. Because of all this loss, the character made a strong pledge. This pledge was to get revenge on that trashy bastard. After making that promise, the character managed to enter the Empire's Royal University with a lot of hard work, where Dikilin was a professor. Even though other students don't know, the character knows that Dikilin's so-called spell interpretation skill is just a lie built on the father's work. With that theft, Dikilin ruined a whole family, so the character wonders how he can be so arrogant now. The position Dikilin holds should have belonged to the main character's father, and the character feels immense anger. Dikilin stands confidently in the room. The character strongly desires to expose Dikilin's lie and kill him right away, eyes glowing with power. But the character realizes they need to hold back for now. To bring Dikilin down properly, more preparation is needed for the perfect revenge, and the lecture begins immediately after. Dikilin formally introduces himself as the head professor of the Magic Tower, teaching this special lecture. He mentions that there are 11 ranks for mages, with Monarch being the 4th rank, and reminds the students about the 3 big attributes and 9 types of magic. Dikilin explains that attributes are the source of magic, which are the elements that make up objects. The 9 types of magic are then listed, starting with summoning, spirits, and support. The list continues with enchantment, manipulation, ductility, bewitchment, and finally, harmony. Dikilin then thinks that teaching is much easier than expected, even though it's his first lecture and he is unfamiliar with the theory, because he can perfectly understand the script. He continues to explain that even though he reads from a script, he fully grasps everything. Furthermore, his overpowering grace makes everyone focus, and his elitism doesn't feel heavy, but natural. The character observing thinks that the current Dikilin might actually possess the traits of a good teacher. Dekilling continues his lecture by explaining how mana use differs based on where it is stored in the body. Mages usually store mana in the head as it is easiest for imagining spells. Knights store mana in the heart and release it through their blood vessels, while the inner core is the most universal storage, mixing internal and external mana. This is illustrated with images showing different mana storage locations. Dekilling concludes by saying hard work is important, but if someone lacks talent, they must choose and focus, which the observer notes is very fitting for Dekilling. The observer then thinks that, honestly, Dekilling doesn't have amazing talent, noting his current mana is 3,375. In contrast, there is a named mage whose primary mana is a huge 30,000. The observer finds it amusing that Dekilling is saying things he should be focusing on himself as the lecture ends. Dekilling wonders about the last part of the script, thinking it seems strange and questioning if he should read it, knowing the original Dekilling would never have read that sentence. Dekilling then asks if there are any questions. The students are mostly silent, but one student raises a hand. The student who spoke stands up from the audience. Another student whispers that thankfully, there are no questions as Dekilling looks toward the student who called out. The student calls out to Professor Dekilling, mentioning a mysterious spell discovered in the dormitories last night, assumed to be an act of the devil. The student then questions Dekilling, the genius spell interpreter, asking if he is really from the university's magic tower. Dekilling responds with confusion, asking why the student is asking that. Dekilling states that if the student is from the magic tower, then saying their name and affiliation should be second nature. He harshly tells the student he will not answer questions from a child who doesn't know how to follow basic etiquette, causing the student to be shocked. The character who called out is told, "Professor." Dekilling apologizes internally, saying he has no choice now because he just realized that the comprehension ability costs a huge amount of mana. Dekilling's mana drops to 2,005 out of 3,375, and he notes that while he understood the script for 1,300 mana, he doesn't know the cost for a spell he has never seen before. The students in the background start snickering and laughing at the confrontation. The character in the hood seems upset that their attempt to get noticed backfired, and they were made to look like they had no manners. The hooded student then suddenly calls out, "Please wait," saying the magic tower is refusing to analyze the spell, claiming it's just a rumor. The student urges Dekilling, saying if it is him, he could figure out the type of magic used. The hooded student then starts channeling a powerful green light magic. The student urgently requests Dekilling to interpret the spell right now. Dekilling looks over as a large magical circle forms, with the audience watching. Dekilling seems momentarily taken aback, and his mana level is shown as 360 out of 3,375. The student explains that the other debutants at the dormitories are trying to analyze it but have made no progress, begging for a hint, and Dekilling simply states, "It's barrier magic." The hooded student, whose rank is debutant lowest rank, seems confused by Dekilling's quick answer and is told there is no need for hints. Dekilling explains that it is a bewitchment-type barrier spell and that someone wanted to trap the students. He declares it's over as the hooded student in the class looks shocked. The system confirms the side quest is complete with a small currency reward. This crop simply shows the quest completion details. The scene shifts to the University Magic Tower cafeteria where a group of students are eating and chatting. The hooded character, Efren, is eating while muttering, "Annoying bastard," thinking she was going to expose Dekilling's spell interpretation skill as a lie using an unknown spell. She got flustered and was made to look like an idiot with no manners because she didn't say her name. Efren then thinks that maybe Dekilling was the one who got flustered, even though she felt embarrassed. She concludes that the spell was basically a bewitchment spell. Efren reflects that bewitching magic is very difficult and usually needs parameters, so calling it bewitching magic without parameters was chaotic at first. She explains that the unknown spell drawn on the dormitory door last night was meant to increase the freshman's research skills. She inwardly asks who's the idiot now as she realizes her plan backfired. Another female student excitedly rushes over to Efren, calling her name about the magic spell on the dorm door from yesterday. The friend happily exclaims that after assuming it was a real barrier and recomposing the spell, it turned out right, leaving Efren confused. The friend praises Efren for being brave for asking the scary professor, but Efren pulls back, questioning if that magic was really a barrier. The friend thinks Dekilling is amazing, while Efren wonders how he knew it was a bewitchment without parameters, denying it was possible. Efren is shocked, thinking there is no way he could have known, but thanks the friend, Efren The friend says they will write a report and add Efren's name, to which Efren agrees, but then internally feels she just improved Dekillian's reputation for nothing. Efren looks at the document for Dekillian's lecture, understanding elemental magic, noting the rank and leading professor. She reviews the course information, reminding herself of the saying, "Know your enemy and you'll win all your battles," right? The character resolves not to waver when seeing Dekillian's face from now on. She clenches her fist, determined. Standing amidst flames, Dekillian smirks as Efren internally vows, "Just you wait, Dekillian." Efren stares with blazing eyes, proclaiming, "I'm going to expose you soon." The side quest of the university lecture is finished, and the character gets a small amount of store currency. The character thinks to himself that things could have gone really badly there. He reflects on how his comprehension instantly activated when he looked at the spell earlier. Just seeing the tangled lines of the spell circle was enough to use up all the mana he had. He admits that he couldn't even understand what the spell was meant to do. Even if he had twice the mana he has now, understanding the spell's principles would still be impossible. At least nothing went wrong in the end, and then someone greets him with a long time no see. The character instantly recognizes the person approaching him. It is a woman with white hair and light eyes, dressed in shining knight armor. He notes that this is Julie von Deifriden, someone he has seen many times on his monitor before. Julie asks him how he has been, pointing out that he broke a promise they made a week ago. The character, Dekillian, pretends not to know what she is talking about, while Julie presses him about running away again. Dekillian decides he has forgotten about the promise due to a recent fever and asks her to remind him. Julie recalls their promise. If he was honest about his pretensions and arrogance to everyone, she would stay with him. She sadly concludes that she was wrong to trust him and tells him he may go. Dekillian excuses himself, and Julie is left there with a shocked expression. Julie remembers that her engagement to Dekillian was just for convenience, uniting the Euclians and Freydens for politics and bloodlines. She admits that although she doesn't love him, she was okay with the loveless marriage, but she couldn't stand the lies, which goes against her knight conviction. She reminds him that he also agreed to their promise. The scene transitions to the Imperial University's Magic Tower, which is described as the best in the game, like the medical school at a top university in Korea. The character thinks the campus is nice, reminding him of an American college, but wishes he were in someone else's body experiencing it. He remembers his team working hard to create this atmosphere, but now he is experiencing it in his current body. Suddenly, a student bumps into him hard, dropping his papers. The student apologizes, saying he was rushing to see his professor, and Dekillian recognizes him as a kid from before. Dekillian tells the student he thought it was an ambush, but then remembers the student's name is Alan, not Zoro, and dismisses the thought. The scene shifts to Dekillian's office in the Magic Tower, which needs money for magic development, and professors sponsor worthy new mages. Dekillian is looking at a sponsorship document, and the name shines gold. He figures this is due to Dekillian's traits, wealthy magnate and sharp eyesight, which means the person named will bring in money. There are other talented people with similar documents, but one in particular stands out. The document shows Efren Luna, a main named character from the game, who, according to developers, lost her father to Dekillian. Dekillian wonders why Efren Luna doesn't have any sponsorships, and Alan explains that everyone was too scared of what Dekillian might do if they sponsored her. Dekillian notes that she is talented enough to be at the Magic Tower without going to the academy. However, he knows that in the game, Efren Luna is Dekillian's enemy, and if he lets things play out as they did in the game, he will face the same death ending again. Villain's fate description says everyone wishes for his death, but what doesn't kill him makes him stronger. In the game, Dekillian dies in many ways: sword to the heart, wand to the head, poison, and even bomb terrorism. He realizes that to live, he must make a different choice than the original Dekillian would have. He tells Alan to turn in some papers and borrow a few books he needs to write down before going home. Alan agrees and says goodbye to the professor. Dekillian thinks that he needs a lot of money to survive, as many death routes can be overcome with money. Investing in a mage is one way to get money, but he realizes that is not enough. There are countless named characters who resent him and will try to kill him when they get the chance. He concludes that to survive, what he really needs is a way out. With a determined look and dark energy gathering around him, he resolves that he needs to become strong. The main character thinks that the best way for him to survive in this world is to become much stronger. He is sitting in a grand room, looking thoughtful. He worries that Dekillian's talents are just average, and at the speed, he cannot face future dangers. He realizes he cannot survive the many deaths that are coming. This thought brings a dark, painful vision of his past failures and impending doom. The vision is intense, filled with shadows and a deep red background, showing him being overwhelmed. However, he remembers that he has something helpful on his side, his special attributes. He recalls that Professor Dekilin cannot control all 4 elements as he brags, but he is good at controlling earth and fire. Dekilin's ability to combine earth, fire, and metal leads to his other unique attribute. This attribute is called the Midas Touch, which looks like golden slime in his hand. The Midas Touch uses the user's mana to unlock the potential of a target, and this talent in manipulating metal allows the main character to control levitating blades. Even though it sounds fancy, he calls it simple telekinesis, which is not common in this world. He figures that whatever power he lacks can be made up by manipulating the properties of metal. But first, he needs to learn manipulation. He looks at a book showing symbols and realizes he needs to learn how to manipulate objects. He decides to test this out right away. The character places his hand on an open book, and blue light flows from him into the pages. The magic energy surges from his hand into the book. A huge magic circle forms, showing a powerful magical reaction. The intense energy creates a strong pressure. A blast of blue energy shoots out from the process. As this happens, the knowledge and spells of basic telekinesis start flooding into his mind. Ancient-looking characters swirl around his head as the information pours in. The effort leaves him visibly strained and sweating. He breathes heavily, looking back at the chandelier. He feels a sense of accomplishment, hoping that this new knowledge will help him now. A glowing pen, imbued with energy, floats in the air. He leaps through the air, landing gracefully after using the power. He confirms that he has now memorized basic telekinesis and doesn't need a spell to use it, as the knowledge is now in his brain. He notes that seeing something he only knew from a game now realized is amazing, explaining that memorize lets the brain cast spells automatically. But he knows the basics won't be enough, even with higher-ranking telekinesis, so he wonders what else he should do. He looks down at some books and then focuses, thinking hard about the next step. A new idea strikes him. What if he puts magic circles all over his entire body? In this world, bigger magic circles mean stronger magic. He visualizes understanding his whole body, not just his brain but his core, by covering it in magic circles to boost his telekinesis. He knows there is a risk of his body overloading or having bad side effects. However, his body has a unique attribute called Iron Man, which is top tier physically. This Iron Man attribute allows him to withstand those side effects, making this risky maneuver possible only for him in this world. His current mana level is 800, and he thinks that should be just enough for a small test. As he channels the power, intense blue light explodes around him. The power turns into a painful red vortex filled with glowing runes. The pressure from the magic is immense, indicated by strong impact lines. He grits his teeth against the extreme force. He feels a dreadful, incomparable pain, like his bones are breaking and muscles tearing. The visual shows his body seemingly shattering under the strain. Despite the terrible pain, he vows not to give in or even let out a groan, maintaining the dignity expected of a noble. He manages to hold himself together, still appearing composed as a noble, even while glowing with magical power. A strong impact sound is shown against a dark, textured background. He is back in the grand study, looking tired but composed. His mana is severely depleted, reading 1 out of 3,375, and he feels extremely exhausted. He admits he failed because his mana ran out, but he still gains something from the experience. He now has 1 magic circle on his shoulder, and he calculates it will take 2 weeks to cover his entire body at this rate. The chapter title card is shown, indicating Chapter 5. A month passes after Dekilin's seminar, and now it's the first day of lectures, shown with a bright, sunny view of a large university building. The building is identified as the University Magic Tower, and the students are looking at a wooden sign with runes. The sign states that the professor wishes to test their abilities by asking them to bring back results from the element-rich area. The students wonder why they are outside and if they must work with elements. The students look around, asking where Professor Dekilin is, complaining about being told to study by themselves on the first day. A girl with white hair looks angry, thinking that Dekilin is an irresponsible man. She continues to complain about the professor being irresponsible, just as she bumps into someone. The white-haired girl is startled after bumping into the other person. She looks shocked and perhaps a bit scared at the person she bumped into. The person she bumped into seems to be levitating or in motion, and the white-haired girl realizes who this person might be. A girl with long blonde hair looks on with a serious expression in a bright, leafy area. The blonde girl is identified as Sylvia von Josephine Alade, and a white-haired girl reacts in surprise upon seeing her. The white-haired girl is taken aback, asking, "Huh?" The white-haired girl is utterly shocked that Sylvia doesn't seem to recognize her. There is a white panel suggesting a shift in focus or thought. Back in the element-rich area, a stone structure is being violently destroyed by an unseen force. The white-haired girl stares at the shattered structure and wonders what happened, realizing the person involved must be from House Alade. This sparks a dark memory. 10 years ago, the Alades surrounded their manor, fearing her father's and her own potential. The memory shows the young white-haired girl hiding while the Alade troops threaten her family's home. The white-haired girl looks furious, questioning how Sylvia cannot remember her after all that happened. The structure is completely destroyed, and the blonde girl is confused, asking what is happening. The white-haired girl feels like her mana is being drained away somewhere. A massive blue energy wave appears to be pulling things in, centered around the blonde girl. The blonde girl confronts the white-haired girl, asking what she is doing right now. She presses further, asking if the other girl realizes she is taking everything she gathered, and then asks if she can hear her. The white-haired girl is enraged and confused by the other girl's behavior. She wonders why the blonde girl isn't responding to her, then notices something, thinking, wait. The white-haired girl confronts the blonde girl, calling her Miss Sylvia and asking why she is pretending not to know her. The blonde girl seems confident in her stance, stating, "That's what I thought." The white-haired girl insists there is no way Sylvia shouldn't recognize her, especially after threatening her family to stop using magic. The white-haired girl then accuses Sylvia, asking if she is scared that she has come to steal her spotlight. But the blonde girl firmly replies, "I don't know you." The blonde girl clarifies, "I don't know you, but I know your father." The blonde girl describes the father as that cocky former noble. Then, with a cold look, the blonde girl states that she heard he died. The white-haired girl reacts with extreme shock and rage at the insult against her father. Other students nearby point and exclaim in surprise at the sudden eruption of power. A massive burst of green light and energy erupts from the blonde girl, directed toward the trees. The white-haired girl screams at the blonde girl, asking what she just said. The blonde girl seems to be powering up for a strong response, with a dark aura forming around her. The white-haired girl, now completely enraged with glowing eyes, prepares a massive attack with green energy. She unleashes the powerful green energy blast with full force. The fight got super intense, making one of the girls shout really loudly with green energy swirling around her. The power was so strong it sent her flying back from the point of collision. The other girl, with bright blonde hair, looked shocked by what was happening. Suddenly, a big explosion of red and orange lights erupted where the powers met. The explosion sent debris flying everywhere, and people below screamed in terror. Someone nearby groaned in pain as the aftermath hit them. After the blast settled, people were wondering what exactly happened and checking if anyone got hurt in the chaos. A white-haired person, who seemed to be in control, stood over the blonde girl and demanded someone repeat what they said, angry about insults against their father. The white-haired person threatened the blonde girl, who looked confused by a strange energy emanating from the white-haired girl. A dark, swirling void with red energy appeared in the center of the scene, glowing intensely. Someone cried out in pain as the void started pulling things in, showing chaos starting. The white-haired girl looked around, realizing the dangerous dark spot was a void formed where her magic and someone else's collided. She explained that the void was sucking in everything near it without stopping. Someone shouted a warning that the void was about to explode and told everyone to run away fast. The danger was clear. If it exploded, metal shards would become deadly bullets, killing everyone present. The terrifying red energy surrounding the void pulsed as the situation became more critical. The red energy violently interacted with the debris, pulling it toward the center of the swirling mass. The scene fades to white with small black specks floating down, indicating the immediate danger might have passed. The white-haired girl, now seemingly protected by a green shield, was still catching her breath. She wondered why everything suddenly went quiet and if the explosion had stopped. A distinguished-looking man appeared, seemingly unaffected by the event, with sharp blue shards floating around him. The shards, frozen in midair, appeared near the two girls, causing one of them to react strongly. People wondered how that man suddenly got there and why the explosion's metal fragments were now frozen in place. The man stood calmly as the blue shards formed a protective circle around him, showing off his control. As the man used telekinesis, the other students watching were amazed by the sheer beauty of the magic displayed. Students, learning magic themselves, couldn't help but be wowed by the spectacle. They recognized it as powerful enchantment magic which captivated everyone. The sheer dazzling nature of the magic left no one indifferent, even the girls involved. The blue energy settled, leaving a pile of frozen ice-like fragments on the ground where the fight was. The man who controlled the shards told everyone to pay attention and announced the lecture was ending there. He then instructed everyone except those involved in the commotion to leave the area. The white-haired girl realized she was in big trouble now that the authorities had arrived. The focus zoomed in on the distressed face of the white-haired girl. This section shows the title card for Chapter 6 of A Villain's Will to Survive. The story shifts to an interrogation room where someone, perhaps one of the professors, is arriving first. The arriving person greeted the chairwoman and head professor Dikilin, praising their promptness as an example for all mages. Two other professors, Ritlan and Rilin, were also welcomed, and Dikilin apologized for calling them on short notice. The chairwoman, Adeline Sajilian, cut to the chase, asking who dared to touch the daughter of House Alade. A person speaking from the back mentioned that the culprit was some low-ranking person they had never heard of. Some professors started laughing, mentioning that head Professor Dikilin handled the mess well, to which others agreed it was impressive. The chairwoman scoffed inwardly, thinking Dikilin was just flattering her. She believed that since all the professors here were skilled at navigating politics, the outcome of the disciplinary meeting was pretty much decided. The chairwoman noted the difference between Sylvia of the influential Alade family and Ephipine, the fallen noble, practically a commoner. Given this clear divide, she felt she must change the results of the meeting to favor Sylvia. However, the chairwoman had a secret view. She noticed a scary, scarlet energy pouring out of Ephipine. This hidden, dark red aura was only visible to her because of her special sharp eyesight ability. Her vision revealed a system notification about Villain's fate, which is described as the world wishing for his death. The system showed that whatever didn't kill Ephipine was making him stronger, meaning his villain's fate had activated, and if she couldn't change the result, her own death was getting closer. The disciplinary meeting between the two debutant mages, Ephipine and Sylvia, was about to start in the formal hall. An older professor aggressively questioned the girls about causing trouble in the school halls, pointing out that people could have been hurt if not for Dikilin. He demanded to know why the white-haired girl fought. The white-haired girl said she couldn't speak, which made the professor exclaim in shock. She thought to herself that a certain bastard was watching from somewhere, which was why she couldn't reveal the real reason. Sylvia then spoke up, bringing up the death of the white-haired girl's father. The white-haired girl thought about how Sylvia disrespected her father and cleverly provoked her, but she couldn't say this truth in front of their enemy, Dikilin. The white-haired girl clenched her fists, feeling immense pressure and anger while listening to the accusations. Another professor angrily questioned the white-haired girl, accusing her of having an inferiority complex for daring to overlook the status difference between her and Sylvia. The professor harshly told her she should have remembered her place compared to Sylvia and then looked down as the white-haired girl bowed her head in shame. Dikilin then turned to Sylvia and asked her to explain what happened. Sylvia calmly explained that during class, she accidentally destroyed the white-haired girl's work, which led to an argument. The professors reacted with surprise, wondering why Ephipine made such a big fuss over an accident and suggested expelling her for her behavior. The white-haired girl felt a deep chill as she heard the insults being thrown her way. She felt surrounded by accusations and pointed fingers at a mere school disciplinary meeting. She felt she was being scolded without being able to give any excuses, and there was no one to protect her, contrasting this with a happier memory of someone protecting her. The feeling of isolation and coldness was overwhelming. The white-haired girl looked up, tears welling in her eyes, angrily blaming that guy, likely Dikilin, for the situation. Chairwoman Sajilian paused, observing the tension. She noted that everyone seemed to have their opinions set, so she asked Professor Dikilin, who was at the scene, to give his opinion before they concluded anything. Dikilin was put on the spot as a head professor and committee member, and he looked down at the white-haired girl. He then asked Sylvia if she truly thought she had no fault in the incident. Sylvia looked shocked by the unexpected question, while Ephipine was confused by the sudden turn of events. Dikilin pressed further, asking Sylvia again if she really believed she was faultless. Sylvia was stunned by this development, as were the other professors watching. Sylvia stammered in confusion, but Dikilin pointed out that she definitely could have prevented the incident but chose not to. He continued by saying that perhaps her highly expected abilities were simply not enough to handle the situation properly. Dikilin then surprisingly apologized, admitting he didn't block the fight because he wanted her to get into bigger trouble. Ephipine was completely shocked, wondering why Dikilin was questioning Sylvia and not her. Despite the defense, Ephipine still felt it was her fault, but another professor argued that the fault lay with the attacker, not the defender. Dekillian then took the blame himself, saying it was his fault for even making the lecture happen, and then asked Professor Rillin if he wanted Dekillian to take the blame. Professor Rillin quickly backed down, saying he just thought it was an unpleasant situation, while Ephipine was surprised that Dekillian was even refuting the professor who was on Sylvia's side. Ephipine wondered why Dekillian was going to such lengths to defend her. The chairwoman intervened, saying enough, and a powerful aura surrounded Ephipine. Chairwoman said Jillian then stated that kids are supposed to fight as they grow up. She reasoned that since they were just debutants, they should let this one incident go without arguing who was at fault, deciding no disciplinary action would be taken for either of them. Ephipine was internally frustrated because she was fully prepared for expulsion, knowing that Dekillian she knew would have made sure of it. She questioned why he didn't follow through, as the professors praised Dekillian's extraordinary way of handling events. Dekillian simply replied that it was all for the sake of the students, while Ephipine looked at him, still confused. Ephipine looked up towards Dekillian's shadow reflected on the polished floor above. She stood up resolutely, having something more important to ask. Ephipine then demanded to ask a question, making sure everyone remembered the name Luna. She sternly questioned if they knew her father and if they knew the suffering he endured under them before taking his own life. Someone urgently wanted to ask something important to Dekillian. Dekillian noticed the approach and thought to himself that this was expected. The person needed to know if Dekillian remembered the Luna family and the death of her father due to his mistakes. She then wondered what would happen if Dekillian decided to change his past verdict just to save himself. Even if he did that, she questioned if it wouldn't be even more heartbreaking if he didn't remember her father at all. If Dekillian truly didn't remember her father, the situation would be worse. The thought of him not remembering her father made her wonder if that wouldn't be even more painful. Dekillian then told her that she didn't even need to ask that question. He advised her not to waste her potential by focusing on things from the past. As Dekillian turned away, there were sudden sounds. The girl stood there, processing what was said, while Dekillian moved away. Dekillian confirmed that he knew both her and her father. If that wasn't the case, Dekillian would have had no reason to help her before. This made her realize that Dekillian must have felt some kind of responsibility towards her and decided to help. She then questioned if the earlier help he offered was just out of pity. She felt a sense of relief, realizing that he did remember and hadn't forgotten everything. She was satisfied knowing that at least for now, the truth was settled. For the time being, that was enough, and she left the room. A system notification appeared, stating that a death variable related to the villain's fate was overcome, and store currency increased by 2. The chapter number 7 title card appears, followed by bright background suggesting a new scene. Some time later, as a car drives down a country road, someone asks what happened back then. The driver, Gilthian von Ludwig Alade, head of the Alade family and an Asper mage, told the passenger not to worry about that child anymore. The passenger agreed that Aphra and Luna had great talent, but stated that she had missed her chance. Gilthian then recalled meeting Aphra 10 years ago on the day of the Academy Aptitude exam. During that exam, both young girls showed Archmage potential, shocking the examiner. The examiner explained the impossibility of two people having Archmage talent from one generation, especially both from minor families. The young Ephraim seemed confused by the exclamation. The other girl also wondered what exactly was happening. The narration explained that Archmages are beings on a level even the Emperor cannot touch, whose names are legendary in history. However, the tradition states that only 3 Archmages can exist in one era. It didn't matter what type of magic they specialized in. That was the fixed rule for mages. At that time, besides the seat already held by Demerkin, one seat was likely reserved for Adeline, the Magic Tower's chairwoman. This meant that Gilthian, as the Alade heir, and Apharen, whose family was connected to theirs, had to fight for the final remaining seat. Gilthian remembered realizing the true reason the Alades crushed the Luna family was to ensure he became the Archmage instead of Apharen, as someone told Keegan Luna to give up on his daughter's academy entry. Looking at the scene of the Alades dominating the Lunas, the realization hit that the entire conflict was because of him. Soldiers stood around victoriously. Apharen, seeing this, also knew that becoming an Archmage was her fate and her wish. She silently acknowledged that this goal was her destiny. Apharen confronted the other girl, asking if she was afraid of her catching up. The other girl quickly dismissed the idea, saying she was just unlucky, but told Apharen she didn't need to worry about her anymore. Gilthian warned Apharen that she needed to be wary of Dekillian. He explained that while Dekillian might seem stuck now, he was a genius in his youth who could rise quickly. Apharen thought she already knew that Professor Dekillian saw through her trap. She recalled setting up a magical trap that would explode upon contact with Apharen's mana. At that very moment, she had intended to make Ephraim's mana vanish. She had set up a trap so that when it touched Ephraim's mana, it would explode violently. The bigger the explosion, the more trouble Ephraim would face. But Dikilin saw through her plan immediately, even though she checked for any magical observation signs in the room. Instead of blaming her, Dikilin made them compromise, showing the three people involved in a tense discussion. Dikilin then delivered a chilling threat. "I know everything, so go along with me." Accepting that threat was her only option, and she realized he was not just an arrogant man with slightly above-average talent. The blonde girl, Ephraim, sitting in the car, questioned what kind of man Dikilin truly was, looking distressed. The scene shifts to a view of a grand estate bathed in sunset light. A few days later, outside Dikilin's manor, someone knocked loudly. Dikilin, dressed elegantly, asks Roy if he is ready, and Roy replies he will be down soon. In the car, Dikilin reflects that supporting Ephraim was the right choice. Thanks to that, he removed a death variable and gained store currency. He recalled the debutante who asked the question was Ephraim, and she was hostile toward him then. He acknowledged that Sylvia might still hold a grudge against him for that incident, but he had to resolve the immediate danger, like putting out a fire on his shoe. Dikilin mentioned he preferred avoiding social events, but he couldn't miss this opportunity to earn more store currency. He noted a side quest to attend the Flower of the New Year event for plus 0.5 store currency. He needed at least 5 store currency to access the shop. Therefore, he decided he should check out any named characters present at the event to gain more currency. Upon arrival at the grand venue, Professor Dikilin was welcomed respectfully by the staff. Inside, the hall was filled with richly dressed nobles mingling. Dikilin observed that everyone looked like high-ranking nobles, and he recognized many named people. He was particularly focused on someone he admired greatly. He recognized Yahello, whom he used to model himself after, and felt he made the right choice coming to this event. An older noble interrupted his thoughts, asking, "Huh?" When Dikilin seemed distracted, the older noble greeted Dikilin excitedly, mentioning his son took his class, and then introduced his son and wife. Another person rushed forward to greet Professor Dikilin enthusiastically. The third person immediately tried to retract a previous statement upon seeing Dikilin. Dikilin then noticed someone mentioning Sir Gainsha and recalling his feats in the Continental Journal. Someone then invited Professor Dikilin to dinner, only to be immediately interrupted by another shout. Dikilin caught the name Gainsha being spoken nearby. He thought that meeting this person, who would be a turning point in the story among adventurers, would be the best thing for him to do today, but wondered where she was. Dikilin turned, sensing the person he was looking for was nearby, having heard her name mentioned. He decided he needed to use this chance to get acquainted with this person. The view focuses on a fierce-looking female adventurer with her arms crossed. The system confirmed the identity, Adventurer Gainsha, noted as the 5th strongest character in the early story. The character wonders where Gainsha is, looking up with urgency. He strongly believes that Gainsha, who is wearing an adventurer's outfit, must be somewhere close by. Suddenly, he spots someone and exclaims that he has found her. He looks up toward the balcony where he saw a figure, still focused on finding the person. His attention is fixed on a woman with red pigtails. He notes that she is dressed like an adventurer, and now he feels the need to hurry up. As he moves, someone calls out, asking if the person approaching is Professor Dikilin. Dikilin notices Yahello approaching and thinks to himself, "Why now?" The approaching person is revealed to be Yahello von Syrian Rewind, an Imperial exclusive mage of the Monarch rank. Yahello greets Dikilin with mock formality, calling him head professor and saying it's an honor to be remembered. Dikilin ignores the taunt and asks Yahello how his research is going, mentioning he heard some rumors. Yahello dismisses Dikilin's concern, saying his research hasn't progressed in 3 years and people are doubting him. But Dikilin thinks Yahello is just trying to provoke him. It is then revealed that this man, Yahello, was a peer to Dikilin back in university, and he offers help if needed. The narration explains that Yahello and Dikilin were once close, but Yahello developed a grudge after Dikilin got the head professor position. Dikilin feels the provocations are pointless because what Yahello is saying about the rumors is actually true. Suddenly distracted, Dikilin realizes something important. She is gone. He realizes with a shock that Gainsha has vanished from where she was. Yahello continues his jabs, telling Dikilin that if he acts too superior, no one will like him, and Dikilin is furious he lost Gainsha while wasting time talking to this bastard. Dikilin calls out to Yahello, who stops and asks what he needs. Dikilin sharply tells Yahello to stop the nonsense and go away, calling him a rotten cheese-like bastard. Yahello is shocked and confused by the insult, falling back in disbelief. Dikilin curses to himself, Realizing his plan is ruined because he must quickly find Geisha before she meets her outside this social gathering, he thinks with dread that his plan has completely fallen apart. This is the chapter title page for Chapter 8 of A Villain's Will to Survive. Later, under the night sky outside, someone wonders where Professor Yahello went. Yahello lets out a sigh, thinking that even after getting rid of Yahello, so many other annoying people keep sticking to him, which is why he hates social gatherings. He is interrupted by someone calling out Professor Yahello, and he turns around, surprised. He sees Geisha standing there on the balcony, looking directly at him. Geisha asks if they met there by chance, or if he was searching for her, with a slight smile. Yahello is annoyed that after trying to escape the annoying people, he ran into Geisha, and he wonders if Geisha and Yahello were already acquainted. Geisha dismisses his question lightly, saying she just got lost, and then tells him she knows he was looking for her since he has something to say. Geisha then brings up an old mission, apologizing for it, but asks him to let it go since she returned the advance and cancellation fee. Yahello notes internally that their past relationship seemed to be based on commissions, and he apologizes for not bringing the talented magic child he was supposed to. Geisha clarifies that it wasn't that he didn't bring them, but that he got attached and couldn't hand them over. Yahello realizes he was wondering what Geisha was talking about, but he sees that Yahello was about to repeat the same excuse. He remembers the original Yahello's attempt to compensate for his own failures by using a talented child, which was chained up by money and false promises. Yahello asks Geisha one thing while they stand on the balcony overlooking the night. Geisha asks what it is, and Yahello asks her until when she plans to keep living like that. Yahello reflects that before he possessed this body, the original Yahello accepted the sweet talk of useless people, destroyed trust around him, and hurt many for his own fame. The narration shows images of the original Yahello being manipulated and causing harm, leading to the current situation. He states firmly that he is going to live differently now. Geisha is surprised by this answer, admitting she expected him to try and kill her instead. Yahello replies that since he agreed to a secret mission and then ran away, trying to kill Geisha now, who is a top-class fighter, would mean he is ready to die. Geisha thinks to herself that she didn't expect that response and assumed he would try to kill her for running away from the mission. She confirms that she did agree to a secret mission and then fled. Yahello considers that using Euclide's power to pressure Geisha through the Adventurers Guild might be an option, but doing so could create unforeseen variables regarding his own death. A system notification pops up showing that a death variable has been avoided, and he gains store currency. He realizes that he didn't recognize the threat earlier, but now wonders if his conversation with Yahello earlier was also a death variable. He feels uneasy, thinking he can't relax anywhere here, and decides he has no reason to stay as his goal of making connections is done. He tells Geisha he is heading back, so she shouldn't worry unnecessarily. Geisha seems surprised that he is leaving, asking if it is really okay and if there will be no assassinations or deaths. She then remarks that the situation is classless. She confirms her attributes, invincible body and master of all martial arts, stating she is a fighter who reached the physical peak, capable of moving like one even if the type is different. She also explains that the invincible body is at a stage where the entire body is sturdy like a diamond. Yahello thinks that because he possessed the body, the original Yahello probably couldn't send an assassin after Geisha, because if he did, she would have already died. Geisha notes that the current situation is a bit different from what she thought, wondering if Yahello ate something wrong today. She then tells him that she achieved her goal for the social gathering, which was making connections, so there is no further reason for her to stay, and she is leaving. Yahello questions if she is really leaving and if it is okay, specifically asking if there will be no assassinations or deaths. Geisha simply calls that idea classless before Yahello walks away. Yahello internally notes that with Euclide's power, as Geisha mentioned, he could use the Adventurers Guild to pressure her. However, he realizes that by doing so, unforeseen variables regarding his death might arise. A notification confirms a villain's fate, death variable avoided, and he gained currency. He is surprised by what happened, thinking he didn't recognize the variable before, but now it is avoided. He feels he cannot be at ease anywhere here, realizing he didn't want to come to the social event in the first place. Back inside, Rayleigh, Julie's relative and a low-ranked adventurer, asks Yahello how long he plans to stay. Rayleigh exclaims she didn't want to come, and someone tells her to stop complaining, asking about her relationship with Professor Yahello due to the rumors. Rayleigh is shocked and worried by the rumors being discussed loudly. Someone notices Yahello leaving and expresses surprise that the man who loves social events is leaving without even looking at his fiancée. Julie. The narration explains that since Dekillian left earlier than usual, there were talks that he did so because of disharmony with Julie. It is noted that Kim Woojin, the current possessor, wouldn't know about these past rumors. As Dekillian walks toward the exit, a system message confirms the side quest attend the social event Flower of the New Year is complete, granting a small amount of store currency. Dekillian walks out through the grand doors, bathed in bright light. The final display shows the system successfully completing the side quest and updating his store currency. 1 week passed since the person attended the social event called Flower of the New Year. During this time, besides his regular memorization and basic telekinesis practice, he started working out because he felt his stamina was lacking. This was because he almost died after attempting something reckless. He felt his stamina was weak, so he started exercising because he almost died doing something crazy. If he were a normal mage, he would have died from the strain of learning the new fire control magic on top of his telekinesis. During that time, besides his daily memorization and basic telekinesis training, the main character felt his stamina was lacking. This made him start working out because he had almost died after doing something crazy. A bright, almost blinding golden light shone from the research materials. What could be seen through the enhanced eyesight revealed the research to be brilliant, even though parts of it were torn or logically flawed. After meeting Gaincha, the protagonist wanted more strength and added fire control to his telekinesis engraving to boost his metal manipulation. Because learning magic put such a strain on his body, he decided he needed to train physically. The person felt that his stamina was lacking, so he started working out because he almost died doing something crazy. He wondered if he survived because of the Iron Man attribute. The purpose of this was to upgrade his telekinesis by implanting the core of fire control magic inside it. This new method would greatly cut down on the time needed to learn magic. This strong technique he learned was incredibly dangerous, as shown by the blood on his hand and neck. He reflected that without the Iron Man attribute, a normal mage would have surely died trying this. After realizing the intense strain that using the magic would put on his body, he decided that training his body was necessary. This realization led to the development of his new morning routine. He developed a morning routine as a result of his new training schedule. Soon it was time for him to head to work. The man wiped his head, letting out a relieved sigh after his intense workout. He realized he needed this stamina because of the crazy thing he almost died doing a few days ago. He finished his workout, realizing it was already time to go to his work duties. The scene shifts to the head professor Dekillian's office where a formal notice has arrived. During this time, outside of his normal memorization and basic telekinesis training, he felt his stamina was low, so he started working out. He felt the need because he almost died after doing something crazy, thinking a normal mage would have died from it. Someone asked Alan what the sign in front of the head professor Dekillian's office was. The sign clearly identified the room as head professor Dekillian's office. The person felt a big sense of relief because they had learned telekinetic manipulation after all. It seemed the original Dekillian encrypted all his research results to keep them from being stolen. The main character developed a rigorous morning routine that included workouts to build stamina. He did this because he had almost died trying something crazy recently. The person who arrived delivered a message from the Magic Tower about an audit hearing for head professor Dekillian's research in 6 months. They asked Dekillian to prepare the necessary documents before that time. The character really hoped that this messed up situation would not end badly for him. He noted that in the game, Dekillian was always just called Professor, so being a professor might be a key part of the quest. The person realized that the Dekillian in the game was always a professor. The stats showed his name as Dekillian von Grahan, his occupation as head professor, and his talent grade as grade 6. The narrator realized that being a professor might be a requirement for the quest, meaning losing the title would be a problem. He thought about how the original Dekillian in the game was always a professor with a high talent grade listed. Falling through the shattering glass felt like losing any chance of going back. The world below him was a bright red void with specks of light. After realizing the situation, he decided he must find something, anything, inside Dekillian's laboratory. He thought about how much that would help him in this difficult spot. The person thought that in this class, the commoners needed to stick together. They felt that if the commoners did not cooperate, they would suffer in the future. The other commoners in the class agreed that they needed to stick together for survival. They wondered if Efren could get help from Dekillian since he had saved her before, but she worried that involving him would only cause more trouble. He felt that his stamina was lacking, so he began working out because he almost died after doing something crazy recently. The person thought that if he were a normal mage, he would have died, wondering if he survived because of the Iron Man attribute. The person was relieved that learning telekinetic manipulation had helped them examine the research. They noticed the research results were encrypted, but the golden light suggested the work was amazing. The person muttered to himself, noticing that a specific pile of trash looked very strange. He looked closer at the glowing, unnatural heap on the dusty floor of the messy room. The character wondered if the messy area was hiding something important. He was thankful for his telekinesis skills as he saw the heavily encrypted research results. The person didn't know who was at fault, but there seemed to be no better way to stop the killing. The protagonist felt a sense of relief that they had learned telekinetic manipulation, which helped them see the killing's research results that were heavily encrypted. He felt a great sense of relief that he had learned telekinetic manipulation to deal with the situation. He felt grateful for learning telekinetic manipulation as he examined the encrypted research results. It seemed the original owner had heavily secured his findings to prevent theft. Looking at the old book, the character realized that despite the interesting symbols, it was ultimately useless. A bright golden light indicated incredible research, but the papers were torn with incorrect logic in places. The ability of comprehension activated, causing the eyes to glow with a bright golden light. The person realized this amazing research must be that of Effer and Luna's father. A bright, golden light exploded around the man as he struggled against some unseen force. This immense power surge suggested a massive amount of energy being released or contained. This golden light was so bright it was almost blinding, making it seem like the research itself was incredible. The character realized that while looking through the light, the research had brilliant parts but was also torn and had incorrect logic in sections. He was using his special vision to see through the blinding golden light, realizing the research was brilliant but incomplete, torn, and had missing parts. Even though the logic in some parts was wrong, the quality of the research was impressive enough to trigger a reaction from his wealthy magnate skill. Even though the logic in this part of the research was totally wrong, the research itself was clearly impressive enough to get a reaction from the wealthy magnate ability. The narrator was relieved he learned telekinetic manipulation because it allowed him to see through the encryption on the research results. The golden light shining from the research suggested the work was truly incredible. The narrator wondered about the child named Effer and Luna while looking at some glowing symbols. Silence followed as the person absorbed this new information. The man realized that while Effer's father was working for the killing, he tried hard to hide something. Because of the killing, Effer has clearly lived a tough life. The grudge the mages of the Luna family bear against Tikili is clear because of what he has done. A small child clings tightly to a tall figure in a dark coat against a background of sparkling blue, showing this deep-seated animosity. The person thought about how Eferen had lived a hard life, and then quietly said, "Don't worry." He decided that if he finished the research paper using his comprehension skill, he would add Eferen's name as a co-author. He needed accomplishments, but he could not just put her name on the paper for nothing. The person states that they will add the other person's name to the research paper. Of course, they also need accomplishments for themselves, so they cannot simply put the other person's name on the paper alone. The person stated that they also needed accomplishments, so they could not just put the other person's name on the research as a co-author. The character arrived at the university on-campus cafe named Light and Coffee. He met with some commoner students who needed to stick together. The person explained that the commoners must stick together because there are only 30 commoners in their class. They reasoned that if they do not work together, they will suffer someday. The person told Eferen that if they did not work together, they would suffer someday, and then asked if she agreed. The person asking if the other one is also a commoner gets a reaction of discomfort. Efren weakly admits that she used to be a noble. The person sighed, saying that it was fine to forget about fulfilling a noble's duty because they did not even have a residence or land, so they wondered what kind of noble they truly were. Someone insisted that Eferen absolutely had to be present at the meeting. Julia then started to question why she was being called the representative of the commoners. The character thinks it is funny that the others consider her some kind of representative for the commoners. They tell her she is the representative because she also suffered because of Sylvia. The character agrees that making a club is true, but points out that permission from a supervising professor is needed for it. He worries that the professors would not approve of commoners meeting together like this. Someone said that getting permission from a supervising professor was the biggest hurdle for making a club. They then asked what about Professor Elin. One person mentioned Professor Carmel, but another quickly warned against it, saying that Professor runs away immediately when seeing commoners. The character states that of course Professor Tikilian would not offer his support. The girl next to him looks surprised by this comment. Someone wondered if the others would eat the strawberries. hoping they would not. Then, someone else suggested that they should try asking Professor Dekillian for help. Suddenly, someone at the table expressed shock with an exclamation. Everyone looked startled as someone seemed to be rushing toward the main character. The person in front of him became very surprised and let out a loud sound. They asked if he would ask for them, looking quite frantic. One person observed that if one thought about it, Dekillian was actually quite fair because he looked down on everyone, both nobles and commoners alike. One person pointed out that since Ephraim avoided punishment thanks to him, she must have caught the professor's eye. Ephraim quickly denied this, asking if the other person truly thought he was such a great person. The person wondered why the mood was suddenly changing in such a strange way. They really did not want to get involved with Dekillian, fearing the situation would only worsen if they tried to help. Julia adamantly stated that she could not get involved with Dekillian, but someone told her to think it over. Juliet insisted that the main character was completely wrong and trying to help would only cause the opposite effect. With a sharp laugh, she expressed her disbelief in the situation. Julia became startled, and the person she was with asked her what was wrong. The person let out a gasp, their body tensing with a strained sound. They urgently commanded something to move. Someone gasped loudly, clearly shocked to see Dekillian standing there. The other person looked on with a cool expression, causing confusion about why their mood suddenly changed. The character inside seemed startled by someone's sudden appearance. The person she was looking at turned away, moving forward. As the first character tried to speak, another person popped out from behind a door, wishing her good luck and calling the first character a coward. The man, Professor Dekillian, stood calmly while the first character, Ephraim, appeared flustered behind him. Ephraim nervously approached Professor Dekillian, holding out a document, asking for his signature to start a club. She then bent down low, presenting the document with both hands to the professor. She quickly added that she wouldn't bother him, showing concern because he usually did not like clubs involving commoners. Dekillian seemed to be thinking, as he internally admitted he didn't want to deal with this, but acknowledged the other girl, Julia, was correct in pushing for it. Julia, meanwhile, was thinking that other professors would definitely not help them with this matter. Because of this, Dekillian decided that rather than being bothered by others constantly, they should just try, and he extended his hand to take the paper. He then told Ephraim to send the details to his office later, leaving Ephraim confused, asking sorry. Dekillian returned the signed document to her and told her to take it, and she nervously agreed. Ephraim looked closely at the document and was shocked that he actually signed it. She couldn't believe that Dekillian had agreed to her request as he walked away confidently. Julia excitedly congratulated Ephraim for getting the signature, saying she never expected this at all. Ephraim wondered why he agreed, remembering a past incident with the disciplinary committee, and questioned why he was being nice now. This section shows the title of the chapter, Chapter 10. The lesson for the day was about understanding pure elements, which are the basis of all magic. The professor explained that many mages still don't understand the difference between categorical magic and pure elements, using a diagram on the board as an example. He then posed questions about the underlying motive, asking if it was guilt or maybe sympathy. One student in the classroom thought that Dekillian driving her father to death meant that any kindness now would surely feel fake. The student concluded that if he truly felt bad, he should show his true self and ask for forgiveness from the world. Julia noticed Ephraim looking downcast and asked if she was all right, seeing her fists clenched. Ephraim snapped out of her thoughts, asking a what, as Julia told her not to worry about the other nobles. Julia assured Ephraim that those other people only knew how to talk badly, which made some other students wonder what Julia was referring to. Ephraim realized she had become an enemy to the nobles after the previous incident. Some nobles were looking at her scornfully, with one calling her vermin and another asking why she was looking at them. The nobles muttered that her presence was gross, and Ephraim thought to herself that she truly made an enemy of the nobles after that last incident. Ephraim told Julia it was fine, and that those people were always like that, urging her to focus on the lecture. The professor continued, explaining that even the magic circles they used until now had a reason behind every stroke. Someone in the audience thought that Dekillian's lectures were rumored to be different, as the professor prepared to demonstrate something. Dekillian showed how a simple ignition spell could change color just by adding 2 strokes to the circle, explaining that these strokes determine the flame's color. He then announced that they would learn about flowing fire today, presenting a glowing magical book. Dekillian seriously reviewed the notes in his book, showing complex magical diagrams. It was acknowledged that Afaren's earlier thoughts were not entirely wrong, as Tikilian's previous lectures were mostly just a way for him to show off his status. Now, however, the lectures were like beautiful reenactments of what Kim Woojin was capable of, using mana for creative explanations of elite understanding. This revelation shocked everyone listening in the lecture hall, especially the debutantes. It was also a shock to Sylvia, who had lost the joy of learning because she was already so talented. Sylvia sat intently, blushing slightly as she focused on the lecture. Tikilian started by showing the common magic circle for summoning water. He then showed how combining that water circle with the fire magic circle changed its appearance. He revealed that combining the two resulted in a powerful, swirling purple magical effect around him. The students watched in awe as a massive stream of fire erupted, with Efren and Julia reacting strongly to the powerful magic. The observers exclaimed that the fire was truly flowing, moving just like water. One student, seemingly Sylvia, reacted with shock, unable to believe what she was seeing. This student admitted that she didn't know his lectures were so theoretical, realizing the depth of his teaching compared to what she expected. The lecture continued, explaining that most geniuses rely on intuition for spells, making theory feel like just a restrictive mold for them. The explanation suggested that if everyone only used theory, all magic would look the same, leading to a depiction of figures seemingly controlled by a mold. The narration stated that if theory was prioritized too much, it stopped the time needed for actual magic training, presenting this as the paradox of magic. The hourglass imagery reinforced the idea that too much focus on theory wastes time needed for practical training, which is inefficient. A struggling figure showed the difficulty of constantly training without intuitive understanding, emphasizing this as the paradox of magic itself. Killian then stated that to be an elite, one must have good intuition, looking serious. However, the thought followed that elites often cannot explain that very intuition, which is what Sylvia was struggling with. The narration pointed out that for someone like Sylvia, whose genius was being publicly doubted, teaching such a theory-heavy lesson seemed almost impossible. The Killian concluded that teaching such a theory-focused lesson was practically impossible for him given the current situation. Later, back outside the Grand Academy building, Efren sighed, noting that the lecture was completely different from the rumors and that she had never focused so hard before. Efren returned to the Magic Tower dorm, feeling thoughtful about the lecture she just attended. She noticed her door had been vandalized with angry, derogatory messages, wondering how long the pranks would continue. She realized things had gotten much worse ever since the incident involving Sylvia. Efren then found a sponsorship certificate on the floor and initially thought it was another prank she almost fell for. She reasoned that there was no way it was real since she was hated by both the Elade household and Tikilian, so she planned to report it as false to get a reward. She decided this was actually good, thinking she could report the fake document for a reward. Efren then headed to the Magical Administration office. After entering the office, she was intensely shocked when she found out the certificate was real. She stared wide-eyed at the staff member, asking, "Pardon?" The staff member calmly confirmed it was not fake and that the seal was real, which made Efren scream in disbelief, questioning if the staff member was lying. The sheer reality of the situation made her heart flutter in disbelief. Efren smiled brightly, thinking that the sponsorship would surely wake her up from what felt like a bad dream. She imagined her inner self celebrating with joy, then snapped back to reality, gasping in shock. She quickly worried if anyone saw her reaction or if people would find out she had 100,000 elni. She decided to pack an emergency suitcase just in case, then regretted going to the Magical Administration office because she mentioned the large sum of money 100,000 elni equals 100 million won. The staff member she spoke to looked at her strangely, making Efren worry that the staff member might be after her money. She panicked, thinking she should have been much more careful about what she said. Efren bumped into something hard, falling to the floor with a thud, muttering that it hurt. But even in pain, she realized something important. She felt a tear roll down her cheek, relieved. She cried out happily, realizing that someone had finally noticed her true talents. Thinking the world was still kind, she told herself to get it together. She resolved to try a bit harder as bright sunlight streamed through the windows, possibly showing her determination to move forward. The scene opens at the Grand Euclid Manor under a bright blue sky. A conversation takes place where one person confirms that someone is currently heading to the Shansenjul auction. The other person gets extremely stressed, recalling that this person already spent 10 million elni last year and wondering what disaster they plan this year. The stressed person declares they will not forgive them if more problems are caused. The setting shifts to the city of Teuton at the Shansen Jewel auction house as a character arrives by a fancy car, thinking he will finally buy what he has been searching for. The character, dressed smartly, walks with determination on the red carpet inside the auction venue. He reflects on his past, noting that when he first used telekinesis as his main magic, he realized he needed better metal to cover his skill gap. The item he currently has is made of wood steel, which is only a temporary fix for his lack of talent. He concludes that the material he really needs will be available at today's auction. He enters the VIP waiting room, only to freeze when he realizes he has company. The protagonist is shocked to see Julie there, saying he did not expect this meeting. Julie, dressed in armor, looks sternly at the protagonist. Julie looks down with a heavy expression as the protagonist looks up at her. The protagonist observes Julie, and a tense moment passes between them, marked by his serious gaze. Julie addresses him, saying, "I hope you've been well." The protagonist internally notes how surprising it is to meet Julie at this place. This marks the start of Chapter 11 of A Villain's Will to Survive. Julie confronts the protagonist, mentioning he sent 2 young mages to the disciplinary committee this time. The protagonist dismisses her concern as old news and asks if she plans to blame that on him too. Julie points out those mages were newly appointed debutants and questions if he intends to crush Rookie's dreams with despair. She warns him that his past sins will come back to haunt him. Julie delivers what she calls her last advice to him, telling him not to repeat his past mistakes. The protagonist recognizes this as Julie's final piece of advice, understanding she intends to end her connection with him. He stands there, absorbing her harsh words against a dramatic purple backdrop. The text highlights Julie's last advice and her intention to cut off ties. The narrative confirms she wants to sever the relationship she had with Aniclimax, and the protagonist thinks, this is good. He feels the same way about ending things, thinking that no matter how beautiful she is, he doesn't want to marry something so fickle, especially since he hasn't even done it in real life. He worries about the many death risks around her, including herself, suggesting a mishap on their potential wedding day could kill him. He snaps out of the dark thoughts, returning to the present moment with Julie. The protagonist shakes off the intense mood, and Julie seems a bit flustered by his reaction. He wonders why Julie is even at an auction, since she is not the type of person he knows to attend such an event. Julie snaps back defensively, asking if he came all the way just to lecture her, insisting she is just looking for something. She gets upset, telling him he is full of himself and that she would never come looking for him, explaining she just needed something. The protagonist calms her down, saying he understood after she said it once. Julie pouts slightly, making the protagonist think how cute she looks, but then he wonders about the strange emotion he feels. He quickly dismisses the thought, telling himself she misunderstood first, then is taken aback by a new feeling. He wonders if he has been infected by Aniclimax's emotions, as he was just thinking about how dangerous it would be to be close to her. He reminds himself that he has been very careful not to let his personality get corrupted. Suddenly, an announcement is made to all visitors that the auction is about to begin, as a large blue orb sits on display. He quickly reassures himself that his heart is not racing just because he saw Julie, concluding he is overthinking. The auctioneer begins the bidding process from the podium. The first item, the vase from the East, is presented with praise for its elegant curves and Far East artisan work. As the bidding starts, a bright golden light emanates from the vase, catching the protagonist's eye. The protagonist recognizes that intense light from papers he checked related to a wealthy magnate. He observes that the light is getting stronger, which means the item has a value higher than just the current bid suggests. The bidding for the vase escalates rapidly, with several numbers being called out quickly. Guest 1413 enters the bidding at 1,500,000, and the protagonist uses his power near the item. Guest 777 wins the vase for 2,500,000 elni, indicated by the auctioneer. The protagonist thinks that even though the vase price went high, it didn't lose its light, meaning its true value is much more. Checks his balance, noting he has over 205 million elni, so investing in other items might be fine. The following items: Rufferan's ring, Lucho's scissors, and an ancient rune necklace are all sold to guest 777 for significant amounts. Guest 777 continues to dominate the buying, taking another item for 5.5 million elni. Onlookers whisper amongst themselves, noting how guest 777 is buying everything and recognizing him as Professor Aniclimax. Julie watches Aniclimax with disdain, calling him a pathetic man starved for attention. She thinks he is too different from her and cannot believe he wastes so much money on vanity, though she decides to let him be. Julie states that she just needs to get her hands on Winter's fire. Her determined face shows her resolve to acquire the next item. The auctioneer announces the final item of the day. He describes it as an ore used to forge countless fine swords throughout the Empire's history, which is nearly impossible to find. The item is revealed to be Winter's fire. The dazzling blue item, the Snowflare Stone, is presented on stage. Both the protagonist and Julie react strongly to the appearance of the stone. The narration explains that the Snowflare Stone is one of the 10 rarest metals in the world. It is usually used to forge swords and weapons, paradoxically holding both heat and cold energy. Only things like dragon bones are superior for forging swords, making the Snowflare Stone the best ingredient available to him. The protagonist reaffirms his need to get his hands on it, while Julie looks on with her own focus. The bidding for the Snowflare Stone starts high, quickly jumping from 10 million to 30 million elni. Guest 1089 bids 30 million, but before the auctioneer can close the bid, Julie excitedly claims she got it for 31 million elni. Julie is delighted, but the protagonist's bid comes in immediately. Guest 777 bids 31 million elni, taking the item from her. Julie is shocked and speechless by the sudden counterbid. She realizes guest 777 has been buying constantly and cannot ignore what he is doing now. She looks intensely at Aniclimax, demanding to know why he is doing this. Aniclimax sits calmly as the crowd speculates on his intentions. The bidding escalates quickly again, with guest 777 pushing the price to 33 million elni. People around Julie suggest that Aniclimax is trying to buy the Snowflare Stone to gift it to his fiancée. They reason that if he wanted to gift it, he should have just let her buy it, concluding he must love her deeply, which confuses Julie. Julie wonders to herself if she has been competing with her own fiancé, realizing the stone must be something she would want too. The protagonist thinks that if he takes this, Julie might hold a serious grudge against him, but he also needs the stone. He acknowledges this is the first time the stone has been available in 3 years, and he risks losing it if he hesitates. While Julie looks worried about the risk of offending someone, the protagonist focuses on his goal. He resolves that despite the risk, he must attain the stone for his cherished item. The chapter ends with the protagonist determinedly looking at the Snowflare Stone as Julie watches from the side. The auction is at its final call for the Snowflare Stone, with the bid already at 42 million elni. The owner of the magic metal, the Snowflare Stone, is revealed to be guest number 777. People are talking about how competitive the auction was, noting that Professor Aniclimax got the stone, which was exciting. They mention that Mr. Freyden went a bit too far in the bidding, and Professor Aniclimax worked hard to get the stone as a gift for his fiancée. The speaker notes that Aniclimax has already seen what he wanted, and he was trying to impress his fiancée with all his wealth. A woman looks down, feeling the weight of the past events. She feels like everything is repeating itself, realizing that this whole situation is just like what happened last year. She clearly states that she never actually wanted something like the stone. A man is shown surrounded by jewels, offering everything to someone, saying he can do anything for her. The narration reveals that the day of the engagement was the worst day of her life, with the man bragging about his greatness to entice her. She recalls that in front of all the riches he showed, she only felt humiliation. She looks up with a determined expression, telling him that he already knows what she truly wants from him. A dramatic scene outside the gates shows the two characters standing apart, symbolizing the breakdown of their relationship. She remembers leaving that room, realizing she ruined her own engagement. The man who lost the stone seems stunned and upset as the scene shifts focus to him. He recalls that even though the woman was dignified, she eventually fell for Aniclimax, hearing that she was promised a captain knight position in Aniclimax's knight order in return. Gossip spreads among the other women that she actually begged for that position. The woman thinks it was obvious who spread the rumors that ruined her image, wondering if Aniclimax thinks she will return to him now. She dismisses him as a fool, stating he is someone she cannot love. Her hand clenches tightly as she feels intense emotion, knowing that even if she tries hard, it won't change things. The scene shifts back to the present, where she sees Aniclimax and realizes, even this time, he is. Her shock is evident when she sees Aniclimax standing there, and he confronts her about wanting the Snowflare Stone too. Aniclimax asks if she also wanted the stone he just bought. She gets angry, asking how long he intends to keep insulting her before he can just apologize. Aniclimax suddenly apologizes, while she looks completely confused by his unexpected words. She stares at him in disbelief, wondering what he is apologizing for. Aniclimax walks away, telling her to excuse him, leaving her stunned. She is left completely shocked as he leaves. She questions what he is sorry for and why he is apologizing. She wonders if he is sorry for winning this no-flare stone, knowing that Killeen usually wouldn't apologize. Josephine, Julie's older sister, appears and tells her to get inside. Josephine is identified as the eldest daughter of the Freyden household and Julie's sister. This is a title page for Chapter 12 of The Villain's Will to Survive. The scene moves to a grand building at night under a starry sky. A luxury car is shown pulling up to the massive, ornate gates of the estate. Inside the car, the protagonist thinks that he assumes Julie wanted the snowflare stone for herself and is probably mad he bought it instead. He also notes that the death variable didn't appear unexpectedly. He wonders how much of a scumbag Killeen must have been for her to want to murder him, as people welcome him home. When asked if something happened, he looks serious. The maids inform him that Miss Uriel is home. The protagonist walks quickly towards the area where Uriel is. He confronts Uriel, stating that the money she spent was supposed to pay for the mines. He asks if that's what she took it for. He realizes that's why her personal account had so much money, admitting he didn't pay enough attention. He quickly tells her not to worry, as he bought something that will bring in profits, causing her to yell at him in shock. Uriel yells, accusing him of treating her like garbage. He coldly responds that this is not good and asks if she thinks he is supposed to clean up her messes. Uriel breaks down crying, screaming at him. She cries out that they are not doing well financially, and everyone is working hard to keep things afloat. Her anger bursts out as she screams at him for spending all the estate's money. She continues screaming, asking what kind of person he is to gamble with the estate's money. The sheer force of her outburst throws the man back, and she appears full of dark energy. The man recognizes that the villain's fate is activating, showing signs of injury and stress. However, a golden light shines through her red aura, and the system announces that the wealthy magnate skill is also activating. The meaning of this, he thinks, is simple. If he doesn't get through this situation, he will die. But if he survives this, it will bring in a lot of money, and he knows the solution to this problem. He tells Uriel not to worry, but she yells back, telling him to shut up and asking if he thinks she looks worried right now, demanding he work hard to make up for what she did. She confronts him, asking if he thinks that is what she wants, reminding him that she gave up university and dating because of him. He replies calmly that she didn't need to, which makes her cry out, asking what he is talking about. She screams that he has only wasted their money since their parents died, and now he has used up 150 million elni in one day, calling him something awful. Then, he makes a shocking declaration. He calmly tells her, "I will give you the household head position," leaving her speechless with wide, tear-filled eyes. He repeats his offer that he will give her the household head position. Uriel is completely shocked by his statement, screaming in disbelief. She tells him to cut the bullshit, but he calmly states that it's no way for a noble, especially a household head, to talk. She demands he not lie to her, and he says he doesn't lie, offering to swear an oath if she doesn't trust him. She is taken aback. She asks if he is serious about swearing the mage's oath, the one that kills if broken, and questions why this is all happening so suddenly. He confirms with a simple yes. She asks if he hit his head somewhere, but he tells her she doesn't have to believe him if she doesn't want to. She warns him that she will kill him if he goes back on his word. He replies, "Of course," and then asks if she intends on leaving right away, while she replies that somebody wasted all their money at the auction, so she has to do something about it. A powerful sound effect shows the door closing or something substantial happening. The system notifies him that the villain's fate, overcame death variable, is complete, and he stores 2 currencies. He feels relieved, thinking it is like a storm has passed, and at least nothing bad happened. He thinks there is no problem in handing over the position to her, and wonders if by continuing to change things like this, he can escape. He looks up, sighing in relief. He thinks about escaping, and then he hears someone comment that he really meant it when he said he was going to change. Looking up, he sees Ganesha floating above him. Ganesha lands, calling herself an unwanted guest who was just dropping by, saying what she saw was too shocking. The man asks if there is a reason to be shocked, stating that she would do a better job as household head. Ganesha then focuses on Uriel von Grah and Eucleen. Ganesha points out that Uriel doesn't have a single drop of Eucleen blood. Uriel is shocked, wondering what Ganesha is talking about. The protagonist thinks to himself that he doesn't remember this detail being in the original game. The professor delivered some shocking news to the woman, stating clearly that Uriel does not share a single drop of blood with the Eucleen family. This meant that Uriel was only set to be a half-sister to Killeen, a truth that seemed to shake the situation. The professor mentioned that he was already aware that Uriel wasn't Killeen's biological sister, but he was surprised by this background detail nonetheless. The woman, shocked by the revelation that Uriel had no blood relation to the Euclines, admitted she had never heard this information before. She then questioned if this arrangement was really okay, but the professor reminded her that she was the one who requested the test to check for blood relations between him and his supposed sister. The professor acknowledged that there was this kind of background, but then insisted that even so, Uriel is still Uriel. The professor looked on with a composed face as this whole conversation was taking place. The woman expressed surprise at the professor's words, finding them unexpected, and the professor returned the sentiment, saying he didn't know such a background existed either. The professor agreed to keep the secret about Uriel safe, promising protection for the truth. However, just before leaving, the professor had one more important thing to tell. He informed her that the 6 snakeheads, the leaders of the continent's most infamous criminal organizations, have started moving. These 6 snakeheads are notorious leaders of criminal groups, each having a bounty worth several million on their heads. The reason for their movement was clear. They were after the items that were bought from the auction house, and the woman was warned to be extra careful. If the auction house managed to deliver the items safely, the professor warned the woman she would need to be very guarded once those items reached her residence, noting she seemed to have neglected her magical defenses lately. The professor then quietly left the room with a soft sound of movement, perhaps feeling the weight of the news he just delivered. With a sigh, the professor seemed overwhelmed for a moment, putting a hand to his forehead. He then thought to himself that this was knowledge he did not need to have. Knowing this information changes nothing for him, as from the start he decided he was not to kill Ian. He reaffirmed that his way of treating Uriel would not change, regardless of whether she was his biological sister or not. He firmly believed that Uriel would always be to kill Ian's sister in his eyes. Therefore, he concluded that they should just hide the truth about her parentage. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a group of people were gathered around a campfire at night, discussing the recent changes in Professor Dekilin. One person was saying that Professor Dekilin has changed a lot, almost like someone else is wearing his skin, making him completely different now. Another person commented that even the scum looks different now that he is saying such nice things, leading to teasing that the captain is just a sucker for handsome men. The teasing led to a quick, playful spat among the group members. One member asked if this meant Dekilin now has a human side to him, and a character named Rayleigh from the Red Garnet adventure team and Julie's relative was introduced. The captain declared that at least they won't have to watch Dekilin anymore, noting she wanted to ask if he was still looking for a magic slave, but it didn't seem like it at all. She then suggested they should head back now that their conversation was done. Before leaving, she sternly warned everyone to keep everything they heard today a secret. As they were leaving, a powerful blue magical energy enveloped the group, possibly for protection or transportation. The energy burst outward with incredible force. The bright blue energy shot off into the night sky above the trees. The scene transitioned to the title card for Chapter 13 of A Villain's Will to Survive. The next day, the scene shifts to the University Magic Tower, a grand and imposing building reaching toward the bright sky. The protagonist looked thoughtful, muttering hum. He was now looking at an information screen detailing the system store's level 1 upgrade, improvements in mana quality, which would boost mana output and efficiency for a price of 10-1. He was finally able to use the system store, but he realized he didn't have enough currency to buy what he needed yet. The system store lets him strengthen not just his player character, but also any named characters using store currency. He learned there are very few chances to use the system store, only 6 times by the end of the second half of whatever game he is in. This limitation is because he can only use the store once per level, and the required spending doubles every time his level increases. He decided he couldn't rush and waste this valuable chance sitting back in his grand chair in what looked like a library. He was consistently training memorization, physical skills, and other techniques by integrating them into his routine. Despite his efforts, he still felt lacking in raw combat strength compared to infamous named villains. For his growth, he concluded that what he needed right now was the improvements in mana quality, and he resolved to hurry up and gather the necessary for store currency. Suddenly, someone knocked and entered, greeting the professor with a hesitant "Hello, Professor." The assistant, Alan, handed the professor a document he just received, warning that the professor would need to be careful as it was published in today's Wizard Journal. The professor took the journal, and the page showed a wanted poster with dark, ominous energy around it. The professor read about eyewitness reports of the wizard killer Lockhart in the outskirts, urging people to avoid going outside, causing him to question the name. He noted that Lockhart is the greatest danger to mage players in the first quarter of the game, and asked if this guy had started appearing yet. He confidently stated that if he were a normal mage, Lockhart would be a danger, but as he is now, he has no reason to worry. He even hoped to bump into Lockhart as it might be an opportunity to earn more store currency. Dismissing the threat, the professor told Alan there was no need to worry about a wizard killer and instructed him to head back while he went to the library. The professor stopped Alan and asked him a question. He asked Alan if he had any intentions of becoming an assistant professor, which made Alan react with extreme shock and excitement. Alan was stunned, nearly fainting from the surprise as he looked up at the magnificent tower. The scene shows the grandeur of the university building again. Alan questioned if the professor meant to recommend him, recalling that the professor always said he lacked talent, but the professor explained he was asking because he saw how earnest Alan was, though he also mentioned receiving a notice to pick an assistant professor. Despite Alan's stammering protests, the professor cut him off, saying, "Enough questions, just take this." The professor handed Alan a bangle with a Euclid emblem engraved on it, telling him to continue working hard, which made Alan thank him profusely. The professor internally noted that Alan's ability to organize documents and run errands was excellent, making him too useful to let go, especially since others who disliked Dekillian's past cruelty had already left. He worried that Alan might also run away since he had been doing all the work by himself. The professor then told Alan to turn in early for the day and use the money he gave him to buy dinner. Alan was shocked by the extra money, trying to refuse by saying, "Professor, this is too moo." But the professor quickly turned and walked away, leaving Alan standing there, holding the money, as the professor moved through the richly decorated interior. The camera focuses on the opulent interior as Alan seems left speechless, staring at the money. Alan looked utterly flustered and happy, holding the money while staring at the bangle he received earlier, which had the Euclid emblem. The scene shifts to a wooden box indicating the staff-only library. The scene then shows the professor entering the staff-only area, thinking that the reason he came to the library was because of Luna's paper. He examined the paper he found in the laboratory, which was about the invention of pure elements, noting there were too many errors and holes in it. He wished he could find any useful grimoires related to manipulation while he was there. As he was preoccupied, he sensed someone else's presence in the restricted area. The professor turned with a sharp look, asking who dared to be inside the staff-only library. He then recognized the person asking, "Debutante Sylvia?" Sylvia, caught red-handed with a book, could only manage a surprised, stuttered off. It was 10 minutes ago when Miss Sylvia told the professor she was looking for her study materials in the exclusive executive reading room. The professor seemed fine with it, even saying there was no need to restrict the successor of Alade and this year's rookie mage. So, they let Miss Sylvia use the room freely for her studies. The librarian told Sylvia that the professor said it was okay and she could look around as much as she wanted. Sylvia's hobby was studying literature and languages, so she came to the special room to find something that fit both. She found a novel written in Ethanol, the language of the fairies, which became very rare after the fairies disappeared, making it valuable. This is why Sylvia dared to visit the executive reading room, which she normally couldn't enter, but then, she saw Dekillian standing there. Suddenly, Sylvia was shocked to see Dekillian in this forbidden place. Dekillian immediately asked her why she was in the executive reading room and if she wanted the disciplinary committee to meet again. Sylvia was very surprised, thinking she clearly remembered hearing that Dekillian never went near the library. Dekillian then explained that he was there looking for a specific document and already had permission from Professor Relin. Sylvia pointed out that this meant the professor ignored the school rules, and the librarian also let it happen, so they should face discipline too. Dekillian looked at the Ethanol novel Sylvia was holding and asked if her reason for breaking the rule was just to find a romance novel in Ethanol. Sylvia got flustered and stammered, while Dekillian took the book, and Sylvia reacted with a confused ha. Dekillian wondered how she could even read Ethanol, but then stopped himself, realizing that wasn't the main point. Sylvia explained that she was interested in literature and languages, but Dekillian warned her to send someone else next time unless she wanted to show off her family's power. He let it go this time, but promised disciplinary action if she came back without proper permission. Sylvia felt humiliated but thought to herself that she only wanted to understand the fairies through the Ethanol novels. As Dekillian left, Sylvia wondered to herself how Dekillian could read the language of the fairies. She thought that Ethanol was hard to read because it lacked consistency, and she was impressed that the students training earlier seemed so calm. Maybe they weren't scared of the Mountain of Darkness. The narration explains that the Mountain of Darkness is located a bit far from the university and is very important to the Magic Tower, having strict security. The forest there is used for real training and has many magical materials, so the magic tower has set up many protective barriers and assigned a professor for patrol. One of the professors mentioned that the on-duty professor for this week had not been decided yet and asked Tikilin who he thought would be appropriate. Tikilin simply said, "I'll do it," which made the other professor praise him for leading by example, calling him the perfect professor. Tikilin replied that it wasn't for a noble reason like that, and then he received a system notification for a side quest, the darkness of the magic tower, which gave him store currency and an achievement reward. He felt something pulling him from the mountain, which must be why he got the side quest, making him wonder what horror genre event was about to happen there that night. Tikilin told everyone to start packing up, and they agreed to meet at a cafe near the magic tower in 9 hours. 9 hours later, at a cafe near the magic tower, a girl named Efren happily treated her friends to some fancy desserts. Her friends were amazed at how pretty the desserts looked, and Efren happily said it was because she now had 100,000 elni. She then mentioned that she submitted the club establishment plan and it should be approved soon, suggesting the current gathering was an early first meeting. One friend hoped that others wouldn't hesitate to sign up, but Efren reassured them that if they ran the club well, people would join eventually. Another friend then brought up the training session at the Mountain of Darkness that day, noting 50 people volunteered even though accidents happen there sometimes. Suddenly, a loud sound echoed, and Efren's friends reacted with shock and confusion. The one who was speaking earlier asked if they heard that, and the others started running, asking where the sound came from and that they needed to check it out. One person cried out for help, and Efren shouted, "Over there," while another friend yelled for her to wait. Efren realized something was wrong with her friends and they were being attacked. The attackers seemed to have knocked down her friends, and someone shouted, "Stop." The scene quickly shifted to show a dark, terrifying environment, with Efren looking panicked and asking what just happened and where she was. She remembered being at the cafe street and cried out for help, saying she was coming to help them. A figure appeared, and Efren, who had fallen, looked up in shock. She asked Tikilin if he was the one who attacked the woman just now, questioning how he could attack a civilian. Tikilin told her to open her eyes and look again, stating that the thing attacking was not a person, to which she replied with a confused pardon. The monster roared, and Tikilin noted that since it lost its prey, it was getting furious. He observed the core on its forehead and figured its specialty must be illusions, but he was unaffected because of his resolute, which resists mental attacks. Tikilin then showed his Yukulin attribute, which is a lineage known for subduing demons, stating he would never let a demon survive in front of him. With the defeat of the first demon, Tikilin received quest completion notifications for the darkness of the magic tower and an additional achievement: defeat the first demon, unlocking the Yukulin attribute. The demon was clearly defeated, and Tikilin looked down on it, saying it spilled filth even at the moment of its death. The appearance of the demon and its defeat by Tikilin signaled the real start of things as he looked up at the dark night sky with the moon shining. The final thought was that this signaled the start of the game without the player. The story begins with a grand building under a bright sky, setting the scene for the coming events. A young woman wakes up with a sharp jolt, clearly distressed after whatever happened to her. Someone tells her that she is awake now, and Luna, confused, asks what happened, remembering only being in the woods. She is told she must not remember anything, as a demon showed up in the Mountain of Darkness the night before. It is explained that Luna fell unconscious because she was under that demon's spell. She was later found and brought to the clinic, and now the Mountain of Darkness is closed while the Magic Tower investigates the situation. Luna learns that Professor Tikilin was the one who saved her, which makes her react internally with frustration, saying, "Damn it, not him again." She then asks what day it is. The nurse informs her that 36 hours have passed since she arrived, meaning it is Wednesday. Realizing it is Wednesday, Luna panics, yelling that she is late. With a rush of adrenaline, she quickly makes her way back toward the academy building. This section simply shows the title card for Chapter 15 of A Villain's Will to Survive. As Luna rushes in, she bumps into two other students who look surprised by her sudden arrival. Huffing and puffing, Luna declares that she barely made it to the class, and a girl calls out to her excitedly. The cheerful girl, Julia, asks if Luna is okay, mentioning she checked on her at the clinic, but Luna was still asleep. Luna assures Julia she is fine, feeling rested from all the sleep, but she notices the strange setup of materials on the table and asks if she missed any notice about today's class. Julia replies that the setup was just like this when she arrived, suggesting there must be a special lesson today. Professor Tikilin and his new teaching assistant, Alan, walk in, drawing attention from the students. A student wonders who the unfamiliar teaching assistant is. Professor Dekilin makes an announcement, introducing Alan as his teaching assistant for the day. Other students whisper, surprised because they thought Professor Dekilin always taught alone. They discuss how becoming a teaching assistant can help build a resume through professor evaluations, but they doubt Dekilin would ever allow that. Luna connects this situation to her father, realizing it makes sense because her father was a researcher at 30 years old. She reflects that her father never got the chance to be a teaching assistant, and now she wonders why Dekilin suddenly accepted a maid she has never seen before as one. Dekilin announces that today's lecture will be about learning by experience. He instructs everyone to solve the given task in 3 hours and hands out a timer to each student, including Luna. As Luna looks at the timer, her thoughts drift to her father's inheritance, the bracelet on her wrist, which has become her vessel. She always questioned who her father was to Dekilin, especially since the bracelet is now hers. She wonders why Dekilin never gave her father a chance. Luna also asks herself why Dekilin is being kind now, but she quickly tells herself to focus and finish the task. She needs to think of a spell quickly, but her mind is distracted by these overwhelming thoughts. Meanwhile, a student named Alan finishes his task in just 25 minutes and 15 seconds. Other students are shocked, as it has not even been 30 minutes yet, and they realize that student is Sylvia. Sylvia perfectly completes the task, and Dekilin dismisses her, saying, "Perfect. You may leave." Dekilin then looks over at Julia, who seems anxious. After a moment, Dekilin tells Julia she may leave too. Then, one by one, he dismisses Lahane, Rotin, Kane, and Aharon. As the last student, Drent, is dismissed, someone tells the professor that 3 hours have passed and they should leave. Luna watches Sylvia leave with a satisfied smile, contrasting with the tension in the room. Luna looks panicked as she realizes she is failing to complete the task. Perspective shifts to show Luna struggling with the assignment, while everyone else, including Sylvia, has finished. Luna curses herself, realizing she needs to get her task done too. Dekilin then addresses Julia again, dismissing her as well. He continues dismissing students, Lahane, Rotin, Kane, and Aaron. When he dismisses Drent, Luna is still struggling with her task, which is clearly not finished. Drent reminds the professor that 3 hours are up, and they should leave now. Luna is left alone in the room, the silence heavy. She looks up, terrified, realizing, "I'm done for." Luna drops her head to the floor, begging herself to think of something. She feels the sting of failure, noting that not only did she not do better than Sylvia, but she was the only one who couldn't do anything by the end of class. She questions why she is like this, wondering if she is truly too stupid to do something so simple. She dismisses the idea of revenge, admitting she didn't even attend the academy, and concludes she cannot compete at all. She realizes that 5 hours and 47 minutes have passed while she struggled. Professor Dekilin, who has been waiting, asks how long she intends to make him wait. Luna looks up in shock, realizing Dekilin is still there and murmuring his name. Dekilin coldly asks if she is surprised he is still there, making her tense up. He tells her she had a breakdown over an easy assignment and couldn't finish it in time. Luna apologizes softly while Dekilin continues speaking about how she should react when others are ahead of her. He continues to lecture her about her weak mind. Luna stares back in disbelief and horror as he speaks. Dekilin tells her that she must always be cold and logical. A bright light shines down on the scene as Dekilin delivers his harsh judgment. He declares that with such a weak mind, she will never reach his level. He then tells her, "I'm disappointed, Effine," with a cold look. Dekilin adds that he thought she was better than that, and then a sound indicates he leaves the room. Luna watches him go, her expression hardening with unresolved pain and silence. She stares at the clock and the material on the table, the atmosphere still tense. As she looks up, remembering his words, "I thought you were better than that," Dekilin's image appears again. Luna grips her father's bracelet tightly. She defiantly asks, "So what?" Suddenly enveloped in powerful green magic, she affirms to herself, "I can do this." She resolves that even if someone like him is disappointed in her, she can succeed. With intense focus, she pushes forward, proclaiming, "I'll do it." Her eyes blaze with determination as she vows to succeed, no matter what it takes. The green energy surges around her as she channels all her power to complete the task. The man felt confident that what he just finished should not be a big problem. He spent over 6 hours on Ephraim, but that was a necessary cost because he needed Ephraim to grow for what was coming next. Because of the demon that showed up on the Mountain of Darkness, he learned that the main quest would start soon. The narration explains that when the age of overwhelming evil comes, named characters with good alignment will appear in the main quest. Among these characters, there will be a stronger Ephraim, who right now lacks mental strength in a mage's sense. However, once Ephraim overcomes these things, she will show amazing growth, which might be a danger to him, but he decided he won't let that happen. He strongly believes that fate is just a religion for people who don't try hard, and he only trusts himself, thinking that Tikiline's personalities won't let a newcomer catch up. Back in the present, the man hears a noise and wonders what that sound was. Someone violently bursts through the door, stopping abruptly just inside the room. The person pauses and the man, Tikiline, looks up with a slight reaction. Tikiline smiles faintly as some magical energy, represented by glowing lilies, appears around him. The magical energy fades as Tikiline seems to finish something. Tikiline notes that his assignment of 6 hours and 25 minutes is complete. He looks at a piece of writing that shows the flaws of a non-academy graduate, but he thinks the quality is good enough for first place. He continues to write, making sure the results are worthy of high praise. A system message pops up, announcing the side quest your path is complete, and he gains 1 store currency. This marks the start of chapter 16 of the story. Now that Ephraim has returned, Tikiline decided to go back to his residence, but someone suddenly appeared outside. A voice calls out to him, addressing him as head professor Tikiline. The person excitedly greets Tikiline, calling him Zeit. Tikiline is surprised to see Zeit and wonders why he is here, as Zeit von Bruggenfreden is introduced. Zeit is identified as Julie's older brother and the head of the Freden family, who strongly pushed for Tikiline and Julie's engagement. Scene flashes back to a tense dinner where Zeit sits at the head of the table, imposing his will. Zeit is also a famous named character known for his tremendous combat strength, ranking 3rd overall. Tikiline worries why someone that strong would seek him out, wondering if it's about Julie's stolen snowflake stone, which could be a death threat to him. He realizes he has no way to deal with this monster, Zeit, just as Zeit greets him warmly. Zeit expresses pleasure at seeing Tikiline, saying he was worried because he heard Tikiline and Julie weren't getting along and suggests dinner this week. Tikiline asks if that's all, and Zeit immediately insists on dinner, saying he has already prepared the menu to suit Tikiline's tastes. Tikiline thinks to himself that Zeit hasn't given him a chance to refuse, seeming to accept for now. Zeit laughs, pleased with the quick agreement, and tells Tikiline to just come as the menu is set. Tikiline agrees to take responsibility for the dinner, and Zeit says they will meet then, with a chilling look in his eyes. Tikiline realizes Zeit made it so he couldn't refuse, knowing Zeit values his household above everything. Tikiline worries about what might happen if he interferes with Zeit's plans, and concludes he cannot cancel the dinner appointment. The scene shifts to the next day at the Freden household, where Julie is arguing loudly. Julie insists she doesn't want to meet because they both hate each other, and she is busy training the knights. Zeit calmly asks if she is just sulking because 1 small snowflake stone was stolen. Julie protests, saying it is not just about the stone, and claims she would break off the engagement immediately if that was the only reason. Zeit reminds her that he already told her breaking it off would be foolish, as there is no place for emotions in politics. He then asks if there is another man she likes, or if she is just concerned about Tikiline's poor reputation. Julie denies liking anyone else, and when asked again about Tikiline, she insists it has nothing to do with his record. Zeit presses her, asking then just why, but Julie remains silent. Zeit then tells her to make sure to come on time, and if there is a problem, they will settle it then. Meanwhile, Julie is speaking with Veron, her subordinate from the Order of Hidekane, who comments that her sword technique seemed turbulent. Julie apologizes for showing a disgraceful side of herself to him. Veron replies that it's not a problem and that he doesn't think that abominable man Tikiline is suitable for her, criticizing the head of the house for pushing the marriage. Julie cuts him off, stating it is not right for a knight to speak ill of another behind their back. She tells Veron not to dirty his hands for her sake and that she is fine, before telling him to get ready as she is heading back. Veron looks determined, feeling that he has finally found the answer to his anguish and suffering. He believes he has found a way to prove his loyalty as her vassal, something only he can do. Veron declares that he will make her happy, his liege. The scene returns to Tikiline, who is walking away from the Freden household grounds. People say a demon showed up on the Mountain of Darkness. This place is the Burt Assembly of Elders. Because demons have appeared, they must take action, as magic craft was made to fight demons in the first place. So, a letter is being sent to the 12 sorcerers. They are being asked to come and answer the summons of Burt, as seen by the wax-sealed letter. After that, the man finished organizing all the things he bought at the auction. He can wear the Ruperhin's ring to help recover his mana. He also has the ancient rune necklace that can store mana, and he plans to put the rest in a vault, just like Gainsha suggested, so thieves won't get them. However, there is still one big problem. The most important item he bought, the Frost Flame Stone, is not doing what he wants. He did not expect to use the Frost Flame Stone right away, but he is surprised it won't even move when he uses telekinesis. He wonders if the Frost Flame Stone's mana is fighting against his magic. Since the stone was very expensive in the game, he only admired it and does not know how to use it. He is unsure if forcefully melting it will let him use telekinesis on it. He remembers something he read in the library, recalls reading that a famous sword must be tamed. That process is called a communion. He then thinks if that means forming an understanding with the sword itself. If that is the case, he decides to try something. He focuses his energy glowing blue around his hand. With intense effort, he tries to connect with the item. He is pushing hard to make a connection. A stream of bright blue energy flows from his hand toward the object. Finally, his hand touches the Frost Flame Stone. The system shows that it cost 2,000 mana to comprehend only 0.1% of it. This means it will take at least a year at this speed. He asks himself if this is the best he can do right now, but then remembers he needs to get ready to go out. He looks at his schedule, seeing he has a dinner arranged by site today. He also has an event scheduled 3 days from now, which was set before he even possessed this body. The man looks serious, thinking about the upcoming events. The event in 3 days is the death anniversary. The thought of the death anniversary makes the atmosphere heavy. The scene changes to a grand building as the sun sets. He arrives at the restaurant Von Meschel and thanks someone for coming today. He mentions that Julie left before him, so she should be waiting inside. The man speaking compliments Julie, saying she looks gorgeous dressed up like that. Julie is revealed, looking beautiful in a white dress. The man looking at her seems a bit taken aback. He reflects that he never noticed how beautiful Julie was because he was always drawn to someone else, and now he sees Julie looks stunning. No wonder Dakilin fell for her. The other man proudly says that the main character doesn't know how much effort he put into this. The other man, who is Josephine, says he tagged along since he had to pick out Julie's dress anyway, and then looks at Dakilin with an intense stare. Dakilin thinks he didn't notice Josephine because he was focused on Julie, but he is surprised to see her here. Dakilin explains Josephine as Josephine appears. Josephine is acting like a sister coming to her sister's marriage meeting, but she is much more than that. She is a person that Dakilin must be very careful about, as she is someone who uses any means necessary to reach her goals. In short, she is a sociopath. Josephine owns Shadow, a secret intelligence network, and is as strong as Zeit. She is considered one of the strongest people around. The only person Josephine truly cares about is Julie, so anyone who wrongs Julie will face her anger. Dakilin wonders why Josephine hasn't killed him yet, but he definitely felt it when he entered the room. He is still looking tense. Josephine showed murderous intent when she saw him enter the room, with dark energy swirling around her. This murderous intent is manifested by his villain's fate. The fact that he felt such strong intent from the sociopath Josephine means this death variable is very dangerous. He realizes he needs to show Dakilin is serious about Julie to survive this danger. Dakilin decides to get straight to the point before the meal arrives and asks Professor Dakilin when he wants to hold the ceremony, noting it has been 3 years since the engagement. Suddenly, Julie cries out, perhaps shocked by Dakilin's directness, as he reaches towards her. Josephine coldly tells Julie that the adults are talking, and Julie is silent, looking down. Dakilin speaks up, saying he will leave the relationship fully in Julie's hands, and if she does not believe in this marriage, he is prepared to dissolve the engagement. Josephine reacts strongly to this, with Dakilin looking intensely at her. Josephine, with dark energy around her, states that Dakilin is speaking carelessly about dissolving the engagement. Dakilin confirms his statement, saying if Julie doesn't believe in the marriage, he is ready to end the engagement, which shocks Julie further. The other elder man scolds Dakilin for speaking so easily about breaking an engagement, reminding him that the family elders wouldn't approve. Josephine looks intensely at Dakilin, perhaps angry about the potential breakup, and says if they have been distant, he should try to fix it because breaking an engagement is not simple. The elder also notes the family elders would not agree, as a large roast chicken is shown on the table. Julie seems to be screaming internally about the family head. Julie then begs Dakilin to allow her and Josephine to speak in private. Dakilin considers this for a moment and then agrees, telling Josephine, very well, then, let's go. The other man agrees, saying okay Tilda and hopes the two of them have a nice chat. Dakilin and Josephine are left alone at the table, with a tense atmosphere between them. Killian looks at Josephine and asks what she is trying to do this time. Josephine's eyes glow with intense purple energy. She says just then turns away, holding a drink, while Julie watches them. Josephine then asks Killian directly, "What do you want?" Josephine looks at Killian with a cold, determined expression while holding her drink. The scene opens with a tense moment where someone asks directly what the other person wants. As the question hangs in the air, a close-up shows a character's intense, piercing blue eye, suggesting deep thought or calculation. The narrative points out that another person, Josephine, is listening nearby, even mentioning something happening behind that door. The focus shifts to Josephine, confirming that she is indeed listening, and the main character knows this fact. Josephine, holding a glass, pretended to be happy when she left, but the main character figures out she was just covering up her eavesdropping. The character believes Josephine wouldn't just leave without listening in, and then a glowing eye appears, hinting at a realization that this situation can be used as an opportunity. The setting shifts to a view of the table where the main characters are sitting, and the narrator thinks about how Josephine is unaware that he knows about her. He believes that Killian genuinely loves Julie. The character continues his thought process, realizing that if he can make Josephine believe Killian's love for Julie is real, he might avoid a certain deadly outcome. This realization fuels a determined thought that by acting a certain way, he might just be able to avoid that death variable he is worried about. Here, the chapter title card appears, setting the stage for Chapter 18 of A Villain's Will to Survive. Back to the confrontation, the man starts speaking to Julie, beginning with her name. He then claims that he simply spoke his truth, while Julie is shown looking down, perhaps processing his words. Julie looks up with clear disbelief and challenges him by asking about his truth. Julie argues that as things stand, she cannot break their engagement even if she wants to. She stresses that things have already gone too far, and when she demands to know what he means, the focus shifts to his hands on the table. Julie aggressively asks what dirty method he will use next to torment her, recalling how he forced their engagement using his connections before they were even engaged. She brings up his promises to her family elders and reminds him of what he said to convince her. The focus returns to the man, who seems to be recalling something painful or important related to Julie. Julie's expression turns furious as she recalls the past threats. She angrily recounts how he stopped her from pursuing the Imperial Order because fighting was dangerous, and then tried to force her into taking the mantle of Captain of the Order of Hattercane, which is supervised by the Yahello family. Julie accuses him of spreading rumors about her when she refused his suggestion, asking if he is starting trouble again now. The man calmly states that he knows about everything she mentioned, while Julie is left speechless and confused by his reaction. The narrator explains that Killian confused his obsession with keeping Julie close for real affection, and he destroyed everything around her so she had no other choice but to stay. This intense thought is visualized with Julie tied up by chains, representing the unforgivable things Killian did. Because of all this past trauma caused by Killian, the narrator understands Julie's deep hatred for him more than anyone else. The man declares that he will not do those things anymore, but Julie loudly rejects this, saying she won't fall for it. He continues by admitting he knows he has been holding her back and acknowledges that what he did was wrong, which confuses Julie. The man presses on, mentioning that her elder sister and elder brother have also gone too far. He suggests that if they hadn't overstepped, there would be no reason for them to oppose dissolving the engagement. Julie looks shocked by this point, and the man implies that the opposition is purely for the sake of the family's reputation. He then points out that she must leave her family to achieve her dream of becoming a defender, and Julie is shown looking extremely worried. The focus briefly shifts back to the dinner table as the man says, on top of that. Visualization shows Julie in full knight armor, looking determined but perhaps a little scared, related to her dream. Julie reacts with utter shock, demanding to know how he knows about her aspirations to become a defender, which requires leaving her family. The man addresses her as Julie again, stating plainly that he possesses neither honesty nor loyalty. Julie looks at him, completely bewildered, asking what he has been talking about. He continues his strange confession, saying he is the complete opposite of the human qualities she values and is therefore not suitable for her, causing Julie to yell at him to get to the point. He then reveals there is only one thing he can do for her. He proposes they continue the engagement, but never marry, and Julie looks on with a complicated expression. He explains that though he wishes to set her free, he cannot due to the tangled web of interests, so she can use his name for protection until her dream comes true. The man confirms he will wait and maintain the engagement until her preparations bear fruit, which makes Julie ask what he is planning and why he is saying all this now. Julie reacts with deep surprise and confusion to his sudden confession and offer. He clarifies that he isn't expecting anything by saying this, but if he were to hope for just one small thing, his humble request is for her to show him her smile once a month. He concludes by saying that's all he wants, and a close-up shows his unwavering gaze. Julie seems taken aback and flustered by this simple request, her expression showing embarrassment. She erupts in shock and denial over his unexpected request. She angrily denies falling for his schemes, while he stands looking calm, and she demands to know why he is laughing. The narrator reflects that solely to avoid the death variable, he said what she wanted to hear. However, watching Julie become so flustered over his words makes him think she looks adorable, prompting her to question why he would suddenly ask for something like that. He admits he can't help but acknowledge how absolutely adorable she looks when flustered. The narrator muses that even the intense love Dekillian had for Julie has now become his, while Julie is still protesting and yelling about his embarrassing words. He acknowledges that this love has become his, even as she tries to dismiss his actions as schemes. Julie tries to regain composure, exclaiming that she won't fall for his tricks. The man laughs at her struggle, and she demands to know why he is laughing when she clearly stated she wouldn't fall for it. The other character sighs, internally wondering if this means his feelings are real, despite the embarrassing situation. Contemplates whether he should just watch and wait a little longer if those feelings are indeed genuine. The scene shows the two characters still sitting at the table after the intense exchange. A system notification pops up, indicating that a death variable was successfully avoided, and he received a reward of 2 store currency. Time skips ahead, showing a car driving on a dirt road, noting that 3 days have passed quickly. Inside the car, the man reflects that 3 days went by so fast, as the death anniversary is finally here. He notes that the day of the death anniversary has arrived. He is shown walking through a bright, sunlit cemetery filled with graves. The narrator reflects that just entering a cemetery, due to the atmosphere alone, stirs up one's emotions. He observes the glow of the sunset mixing with the weeds and cracks on the tombstones. The narrator feels his heart melting into this place before his body even fully registers it. He states clearly that this place now bears his memories, not Dekillian's. A close-up shows his determined face as he stands before a tombstone in the bright sunlight. The chapter ends with a bright image of a smiling woman, with a box indicating that this memory belongs to but Kim Woo-jin's. The main character says he is going to put an Easter egg in something, and someone reacts with a simple "what?" This idea came up late one night when one of the team members was thinking it would be good to add more background to Dekillian. Another colleague argues that adding detail now will just mean more work since they are already working night shifts, especially for something not directly related to sales. The first person insists this detail is important because they must put their heart into the game they are making. The team leader smiles brightly, but another person interrupts her enthusiasm by saying, "There you go spouting nonsense again, team leader." The colleague then tells her to do whatever she wants, noting that she didn't ask for his opinion anyway, but he admits he thinks it's a pretty good idea and not pointless at all. The reason it is that Dekillian has a bereaved past fiancé, after all. The main character then recalls how Yura used to get excited whenever she had a fun idea and wonders what she found so fun about it. A short exchange happens where one person asks if it is for their team members, and the other replies that this is the easiest way to take care of the people around them, prompting a question about being considerate. He starts wondering about the joke she left as an Easter egg and what made her laugh so brightly, as he now needs to find traces to recall Kim Woo-jin's memories. Looking at the scene, the character wonders if he should call the idea brilliant or cruel of her. A decorative title appears, naming Yura von Vergesmachenist, followed by some ancient-looking text and a phrase meaning "always grateful for you." The scene shifts to a more emotional setting where he questions why she engraved her name on a tombstone. It is mentioned that Dekillian was modeled after Kim Woo-jin, leading to the question of why Yura used her own name for Dekillian's bereaved fiancé. The focus moves to more engraved text on the tombstone, and the main character wonders if she was thanking him in some way. He kneels down, touching the tombstone, feeling overwhelmed by the emotion. He feels so deeply affected that he thinks one mere word could rack his whole body with emotion. It feels almost like he can hear Yura's voice whispering as he leans over the grave. Memories of the past start coming up endlessly, like the way she praised his drawings with a shy smile. He remembers the time she gave him a coat on a cold winter night, and the way she held him and said she loved him. Further memories surface about how she used to lift him up when he was tired, and the 7 years they spent always by each other's side. These are his memories of her, and he seems to have calmed down from crying earlier. He is still kneeling at the grave as the scene transitions from the memory. A dark, enraged figure appears, shouting, "I've finally found you," and calling him a filthy mage. The chapter title appears, confirming the name of the manhwa. The main character, now back to himself, notes that he has calmed down as if he hadn't been crying earlier, seeing a beautiful sunset. He thinks that Dekillian's personality really comes in handy at times like this, just as someone approaches him quickly. He is surprised to see a familiar face, recognizing the enemy as Lockhart, a mini-boss villain only for mages. Lockhart confirms his identity with glowing red eyes and an aura, asking if Dekillian knows about him. Lockhart is shocked that the mage knows him, calling it unexpected, and then expresses extreme anger toward the mage. Dekillian simply responds by identifying the opponent as the wizard killer Lockhart. It is explained that Lockhart is a mini-boss villain meant for mages, and his main strength is his ability, Magic Nullification. The ability to nullify magic is a huge advantage, and Lockhart's attribute has no real limits, as magic cannot be used within his range, regardless of physical contact. The scene shows a mage attempting a spell that fails spectacularly against Lockhart, who seems unaffected. It is further explained that not only does he nullify magic, but Lockhart's attribute has no restrictions, meaning magic cannot be used at all near him. A mage tries one last time but fails, and Lockhart laughs maniacally, boasting that magic doesn't work on him. Lockhart is shown physically overpowering and throwing the mage away aggressively. The mage is sent flying through the air in distress. Lockhart continues his assault, closing in with intense speed. The mage is knocked down hard onto the ground. It is mentioned that most mages would tremble in fear of Lockhart because of this, but the next image shows the mage shouting "DE," with intense, reddish power erupting from him. The mage lands a powerful blow on Lockhart's face. Lockhart is knocked backward and crashes to the ground. Dekillian stands over the defeated Lockhart, stating that the fight is meaningless to him. Lockhart, struggling, realizes the depth of the attack and screams in frustration. He curses at the protagonist, calling him a son of a bitch against the backdrop of a bright explosion. The narrative shifts back to Dekillian's thoughts, recalling that several days ago he managed to buy improvements in mana quality with store currency. This purchase increased his efficiency in mana manipulation, and the image shows strong blue magical energy swirling around him. Dekillian notices that he has to completely re-adjust because he can now use a much greater amount of force with the same mana as before. The system confirms that improvements in mana quality level 1 has been applied, allowing him to release mana more easily. He realizes this applies to a larger range than expected and decides to continue his training routine. During the training, Dekillian is suddenly hit from behind and wonders what happened. He realizes that the skill is a slight exaggeration, but it raises the quality of a human as a whole, which seems to be the effect of the upgrade. Lockhart is sent flying backward again from the impact. A system window pops up, showing that he has overcame death variable and gained +2 store currency, confirming the effect of the previous fight. Dekillian realizes that the improvements in mana quality also applies to his attributes, meaning he could have won against Lockhart with less effort before. However, because the trait itself got stronger, the fight became much easier than he thought, leading him to regret not being able to erase Lockhart sooner. Lockhart, furious, starts screaming curses at all mages, calling them apostates and traitors against God. He calls out names like Vitugum, Bert, and the Magic Tower as lunatics who are just worms without magic, while Dekillian stands over him, physically dominating. Dekillian observes Lockhart's intense rage directed at mages, recognizing the expression as apostasy. Dekillian identifies Lockhart as being of the red film race, which shocks Lockhart. Lockhart stutters in disbelief, while Dekillian stands over him, about to speak further. Dekillian looks down at the defeated Lockhart in the vibrant outdoor setting as the scene concludes.